For those who don't know, I'm Olivia Javier. I'm part of the product management team for MES and supply chain. Trevor will be along here before too long. In the back, we have Fred Garcia. He's our user experience specialist. We have Zach Ulibarri. He is in our product development team for MES, one of the really great testing, part of the testing part of development. And then we have Courtney Roldan. She is the product owner for MES.
What does that mean?
Okay, so the PMs and the POs, they work very closely together. So the PMs are more outward facing to talk to the customers. And then we take your requirements and write them up, and we send them to the PO, who then works with the development team to explain what the customers are looking for through us. And then, working with the team and making sure that the requirements are fulfilled. So it's a really good team effort. We've got a great team. So what I'm going to show you is the roadmap that we have for MES. So in 2017, for this year, we've already developed some new machine protocols like OPC UA, Euromap 63, Euromap 77. We've also made some quite a few RT station improvements. And then going into 2018, you've heard yesterday about a new track and trace module. We're actually going to do a little demo of it today when Trevor comes in. But this will give you guys the ability to look at information associated to lots and drill down into them. See related information such as sales order information, work order information. Included in that is an order status tracking module and time-sensitive material. So we'll give you a look into what's coming up into the future. In addition, in 2018, we are looking into an enhanced scheduling. And this is more for those continuous process flow environments where update schedule would not really be involved. We have our own, it would be a separate scheduling module for continuous flow manufacturing.
What can you just
So kind of like paint lines and being able to go from one process to the next. They're kind of on a carrier, going through different processes. So, and there could be multiple work orders running on the same work center at the same time. In addition, we're looking at converting many of the MES modules to be web-enabled. So we have started on the RT process monitor setup.
Excuse me, Olivia, that enhanced scheduling,
Yes.
The continuous flow, what's the time frame on that?
Well, we have started doing design on it and doing development. Our goal is by, I think, 16.1, but yeah, we just have to make sure that we stay on track with that and there aren't any other projects that push it behind. Yep. And then one of the big projects that meaning Fred and I have been going out to different customers, is to discuss the shop floor redesign. And this is shop data, assembly track, being able to combine those applications because they do similar things, combining them and making it a lot more user-friendly And so we're talking with you guys to find out what would make the product better.
When you say shop floor, is that different than real-time station?
Well, it would also, we're also lumping that in, so that it could have the same kind of look and feel as the other shop floor application. Again, converting as much as we can to a web-enabled product, and of course, IoT, being able to do predictive analytics. So my session today is pretty much, I want to have a discussion. I don't want to do a whole bunch of presenting. I don't want myself talking. I want you guys to talk to me. I want to listen and hear what you guys are looking for. This is not a session about, oh, can we look at SER or, idea, blah, blah, blah. No, it's what are you guys looking for the future? This is the roadmap as it is right now. However, you guys are here to help, should we change anything around? Should we add anything? Should we remove something? I want your feedback, what you're looking for. I'd also like to get into discussing the shop floor redesigns, what you're looking for there. So I just kind of want to have an open discussion and, find out what you want. Yeah.
I've written down a couple of things. But
Oh, a couple, that's all full.
what do you like? Because I think we could group a certain team, because licensing could be interesting to discuss. I would also like to discuss personas, because for an operator, he wants something different than a team leader, for example.
Right. And that's a good point. That's one of the big things that Fred and I are compiling when we go to the customers is personas. Because as you said, an operator would have completely different functions than the VP of operations. And we want to have that understanding, because the way the operator uses the system is completely different from another role. And we'd like to understand those different personas so that we can develop for these different roles.
Yeah, I'd also add that within different roles, you also have different personas within a role. So there might be different types of operators, maybe depending on skill level, maybe just depending on their background, where they came from before, or whatever. So we want to look at all those differences.
Okay.
Machine versus not machine.
Yeah, exactly. So we want to find all those differences and make sure we make it good for everybody.
I think with all the people together in the room, we already have quite a good impression of various companies, various processes, and operators. And so that's something I would like to discuss in the group.
Yeah.
We have a couple of real-time centers, and Olivia and Fred came and visited, and real-time stations, and we're not getting our bang for the buck in a real-time station. A big part of it we think is the user interface, but certainly some of the functionality. It's going to be easier for the operator to feed information back. Machine's down, this is why it's down. I'm walking away from the machine for this reason. Cycle time isn't right. So, we kind of see, we have a few of those tools pop up. You can see it in real time. You can see if, it doesn't take you, if it takes you longer than, than the standard and so forth. But we kind of want to bring it up to the next level. We have all this great information, historical information in the system, right? I would love for my operators to see, this is how we ran it the last 3 times. So you kind of go, why did it take me 2 minutes longer? It's like, okay, what am I doing differently? What's going on? And they can bring it up to their lead before, I look at it twice a day and so forth. So that's the kind of feedback. What historical information? We went through like a day in the life, right? We did a whole session.
And a lot of
scrap information, historical scrap information.
Right. And the customers that we have talked to, making it easy for those using, for example, the RT station or our shop floor apps, having the least amount of clicks or the least amount of popping back and forth to different screens. Or even focusing what is in the grid to what pertains to those personas, instead of, oh, my information is all the way down here, I have to drag, you know, look in another area, you know. We want to make those kind of steps easier for you guys, and, you know, get ideas on what you would like to see in those cases. Yeah.
Has there been any talk around further label development and the ability to assign more than one label to an item? As you go through the process, you might be down to labeling one piece that then goes into a kit that you have to label, that then goes into a box with another label that then goes into a pallet.
Yes, we have talked to a couple of customers looking for the same kind of functionality that we're looking into. Yeah, because we've heard they'd like to be able to hit one print button and be able to print the box label or part label all at the same time. And, you know, even the pallet label. So, yeah, we are looking into functionality.
So what's the goal of today? We're gonna come out of here with a list of things that we as a group would like to see?
Yes, yep, I'd like to come out with a list, and then after CAB, our product management team, we're gonna get together and evaluate everything that we've received from you guys and prioritize where we can, you know, what versions we can fit them in the future.
With the label printing, will that be tied into the label monitoring application at all, where it can automatically kick those labels out?
Where that functionality, we would look into all the different areas where that would apply to. So if that would include the label monitoring.
Yeah, because I think MES for the last 10 years, 15 years we've been using it. It does a great job of tracking cycles and counting parts and stuff like that. And also with the downtime intervals, that works nice. But when they change the cavities, for example, there's no possibility to enter like a region or something in between there. Why did they do that? Why did they change the cycle time?
Gotcha.
We have to, record that outside of the MES. And I really would like to be that part of the production things, and not only the numbers, but also like the qualitative information.
Right.
So for example, they also, when they hand over the shift, or they would also like to basically say like, this was a good shift on quality, so like a smiley or a frowny or whatever, and also something on health and safety. But we have to now do something in Excel or something like that. Well, you could just easily do that on a
Right.
screen.
Right.
You see that everywhere. You see these frownies and these smileys. How was your check-in experience? How was this? How was that? And it would be fun for the people just to say, well, this shift was good, or this work center was good, or something like that.
Right. Gotcha.
Just on top of all the other things which are in there, because probably, before we started with IQ, we already were doing something in like a ship log in Excel. But I've also seen companies where they just still write down things on paper
Right.
of the things happening in that shift, and then somebody in the office types that over in like a spreadsheet or something like that.
Yeah, and that's
And it
what
would
we
all
want
be-
to get away from, having you guys do it multiple times.
Yeah.
You know, we want to have something where it's quick for the operator or the user to enter in really
Mhm.
quickly and then move on to their next process.
Yeah, because I've given some more thought to that lately, and basically every time they do something within the shift, or they make a change to the cavities, or the cycle time changes, we basically would offer the possibility for people to write down why they did that. And I think it's also what my neighbor mentioned, is you want to get more out of it, so you want to record things, because they won't know what happened in their shift, but the new guys, or tomorrow they won't remember anymore. So if you don't record
Come
it,
back in and
so you need to record it at a spot where you still know it, and not in a separate system. It should all be
right,
part of
contain,
the
because
MES.
everything should be in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. And Trevor just joined us. Trevor Deal, he's the VP of Product Development, right? I don't
Something
know.
like that.
Yeah. So I've already let them
Maybe
know.
MES and other things.
And like,
But the MES is the most
God of
important.
product development.
Still.
For this conversation, absolutely. No, MES, as most of you are very well aware, is very near and dear to my heart. It's what differentiates our company in a lot of aspects. So to this is extremely important. Not important enough to show up on time apparently, but still pretty important. Apologies for that meeting ran long. Yeah, also on the
Yeah, well,
So
yeah.
we're having just an open discussion, everything, just discussing everything that everyone wants to talk about.
Yeah, perhaps if we can then cross over also to the personas, because I think for the operator who's at a work center, well, it does show too much information for me. And also, what I always had with the real-time screen, initially you say, wow, this is perfect.
Right.
But then after a while, you notice there's a lot of columns on there,
Exactly.
on the RT monitor screen, so it's too much to absorb.
Right.
So when you look at personas and you look at the team leader, he basically, in my opinion, should be able to look at a screen and within 5 minutes or a couple of minutes
Pick out,
see what he should be doing or
Exactly.
who he should yell at or which machine to kick. And it's
You
just
can
too
yell at
much
each other,
information.
Right?
Because it is also a nice screen because it focuses on the cycle time a lot because that's what the colors, the different colors are. But if you're running on half of the cavities, that's not easy to flag. If a machine is down, whether it's down like shortly or longer, you still would need to go line by line and actually
Look at it
interpret
now.
all those hundreds of values which are on the screen before you are able to identify what it is, and that takes far longer than a couple of minutes. So people could already stop at, well, they start on the top usually, yeah. So they look at a machine which is down like for 10 minutes, and another machine which is running like half of the cavities, they wouldn't even notice that because it's at the bottom of the line, or even worse, they have to scroll below the screen to actually see that when there's a lot of machines.
Gotcha.
And ideally, I would basically like the screen to should be a button. What should I do? And then just blast.
Right.
These are your top 3 issues because this machine has been down for 4 hours. That one is doing a lot of scrap, and the other one is on half of the cavities. Please fix those because that will save you money. And the other ones, please ignore them for now. So for the team leader, it's not really a big help, this screen, because it's too much
Yeah,
information.
too much information.
So I think we want better managed by exception tools.
Yeah.
We got some, but we see areas of improvement.
Gotcha. Now, right now, we've been focused on RT Station. Does everybody else use RT Station?
We've been piloting it.
Have you been successful?
Yeah, not quite there yet because I expect also a lot more, like the management by exception, and there's still some things, and also like the visual.
Right.
The visual feedback on how it's doing, because now it's only basically showing whether it's running on cycle or not, and that while that is helpful, we would like to have the OEE bigger and with the colors. So that's something, because we would actually like to see at each work center we are thinking of a tablet, and you just walk by and immediately from a distance from 2 meters you can already see a couple of feet probably. You can immediately see whether it's running okay or not.
Right.
And currently that only works with the cycle time, because there they see a different color, and then they would. And we've had an example that people just walk by and they notice a different color, and they just went in and fixed the problem during the pilot, and that's already good. But we also would like to people be aware of problems with cavities or a lot of downtime on
What does
the
that mean
work
is the
center.
problem? We run RT Station as well, so we get the cycle times, and a lot of times it's just so crunched up you can't really,
Yeah, it's the
So
last
what's going
50
on?
or so.
yeah, the last 50, and then depending on the cycle, it's too crowded to really be helpful.
Yeah.
The color scheme there is such that it's just really not inviting, it's harder to read. But what do you mean about color changes?
Oh, the colors on the screen, if you're running below cycle,
Oh, you
you
mean
will
like-
have different colors, so that's
Okay, that's
flagging,
not
because that's visual. The other stuff you need to, like, watch and interpret it. The colors you immediately see if something's wrong, but that's only on the cycle time. So it doesn't flag if it's a lot of various short downtimes, or it's not visual for that. You have to walk up and read and go in and see what it was on downtime, or what cavity it's running, or etc. etc. So
Are you guys looking at RT Station from scratch? Or are you looking to make incremental improvements? Because I think it needs to be, the concept is great. First I can't call it the first, this is like the third. We have the route we're on is not a good one. I think we just need to go back to the concept, which is having a localized information, both providing information to the operator, but also receiving information from the operator, and just, look at it from the beginning.
I think there's a lot of,
Oh, no, go ahead.
I think there's a lot of little things that can be done in re-looking at it. Like when the operator goes to read that document on an RT station, the open and the print are right next to each other. So if they miss their printing,
Right.
and then they're printing to a label printer, and there's no way for them to stop it. So then they just walk away from it, and there it sits.
Oh, okay.
Because they can't print labels anymore, so
Right,
now
'cause
they
it's
have to
held
go
up.
find somewhere else. And if they get frustrated, they don't let IT know, so then it can sit there for days. And then all of a sudden, why isn't the labels coming out?
Right.
So,
So this is what I mean, I think they need to look at this fresh set of
Mhm.
eyes. I mean, the concept itself is a great concept. This implementation, not cutting it. It's okay, let's go back to the drawing board and let's think, how do we make it, showing documents on the station, collecting information from the operator and so forth. There's no shame in saying we tried, that didn't work out.
Right.
Let's look at this from fresh. My concern is that we're gonna make incremental changes, when really we gotta look at the whole concept, I think.
And that's one of the things about the personas, is that we'll be able to look at the program, whether it's RT Station or Shop Data, and look at each persona and say, this is what, based on your feedback, what this persona would look at, and then being able to develop or design those forms, maybe redoing them or tweaking things here and there. But we've got, first we've got to focus on, these are the modules that our users use the most, like RT Work Center or real-time monitor, and being able to tackle each one, based on a priority.
when you're talking personas, does that flow into the security then as well? That they're only gonna see, an operator's only gonna, if you assign this to them, they're only gonna see that portion of that RT station's ability when they log in?
Well, you'd be able to set up security to restrict that.
yeah, because that's also something nice, of course, because you can log on and log off, but nobody wants to type complex
Right,
passwords on an
Right.
on an RT
Fingerprints
station.
maybe,
So fingerprint, yeah, would be nice, or a
Scanners.
short PIN code or something like that, like
Yes.
5-digit or something like that, but not like your complex 40-character password.
Out of curiosity, you guys use many biometric scanners in the shop board?
We
We don't, but maybe the next RT station should have that built in.
Well, I just wondering, always, from the hardware perspective, always looking for good ideas on how to get a thumbprint reader that will work in a noisy environment.
Now, I love that concept, at the same time, our guys cut their fingers on a regular basis. Or if they don't cut them, they,
That's kind of
it's
my
a hard.
point. That's where I was going.
It could be harder.
Because if you guys have found a good solution for that, let me know right away, because, yeah, sorry, that's what I was curious about. from my-
But a short PIN code or something, because fingerprint, it will immediately add to the scanner, to the cost of the tablet.
Do you guys already have ways that they're like getting into the building or anything, like if they have like badges or ID or anything?
Yeah, the proximity like things.
We've actually printed badge number in barcode on the badges, so it's
Okay.
proximity to get in the building, badge to get into assembly data.
So they typically carry those badges or fobs, whatever they happen to be, with them all day long, because they need,
And those are unique to each person.
unique to each person.
Just wondering from security, the badge is not very secure.
Yeah, so
So I
we
get
get
wondering
lost.
if that, yeah.
What, buddy punching, people handing them off.
Right,
Yes,
gotcha.
that kind of stuff, where, yeah, we could say the same for password, but then that's, you know, personal responsibility with that, so we can,
So it was a badge, they lose a badge, they need to be reporting. We've walked to these places, and they've got the passwords pasted on the screen, so we took the responsibility, but it
Well,
wasn't practical.
Right,
You
now,
gotta go and say, guys, don't do that, it's kind of bad.
yeah, for the operator, in our situation, it wouldn't really matter that much if somebody needs to log on. That should be logged on all the time. But if somebody wants to do some more advanced stuff, then it would like, yeah, to log in or have a PIN code or something like to get some extra functionality there, perhaps, or perhaps not even. Yeah, I'm not sure. Depends a little on how dangerous the functionality is.
what would be really, what's your name?
Niels.
Niels? To continue on something that Neil said earlier, what would be really cool is if the operators will be able to communicate as the shift goes on, stuff that they're seeing without having to go look for a lead, call somebody, text,
Right.
and it's shared within the lead group, and it's attached to this work order from here till eternity,
Gotcha.
so that would be really nice to have that as well.
So is that something that the bulletin can handle? No.
Feasible,
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the bulletin board, but it's a little complex even when testing. It's very easy to post something for the entire e-plant. Are you using the bulletin board?
No, we're not.
So you can, yeah, like sort of like WhatsApp, but then for the for the MES system, for the Android, for the Work Center app.
Right. You can
Um,
set up bulletins for different areas of the software, like on the bomb, I believe is one of them, and then it'll show that information in the RT monitor.
I think it's slightly too confusing because you have to basically have labels, and where you can say something is like for the e-plant, for the work center, or for the BOM, I think. And it's, yeah, you can toggle them on or off, but when you make a mistake, it's visible for everybody on each work center, on every location within the e-plant, for example. So that, but in basis, that's already
So
nice.
it shows up in RT Station?
Yeah, it's on the side. I'm not sure whether
Right.
you can show it. Is also in shop data actually, but
Yes,
we're not
it
using
is.
it in shop data.
And it shows up in the
It's
schedule.
on the side. You have to click.
Right.
Shows us where?
In the schedule tab as well, the bulletin boards in the schedule, isn't it?
Yes.
Do you have to go and click, or does it pop up?
There's like a little slide out. You just click a little area and it'll slide out.
Trevor, you're gonna demo anything, something? Are you able to show the bulletin boards easily or later?
I can see about getting a demo rolling for that this afternoon.
Okay. Because I think it's interesting because that's one of the nice things about social media. People like actually just typing short messages, and it's sort of like fun, and they also like things to be easy and fun.
How many of this group use a bulletin board?
A little in testing.
Anybody
Try.
But just like
Try.
WhatsApp, you
It's
basically
too complex.
Well, I use WhatsApp all the
By
time.
the time they go into the
Yeah.
bomb and
Gotcha. So if we made something a lot easier, less complex, we'd use it a lot more.
In my opinion, because you start a work order, and that already, when you put it on sequence 1, that already should be like the first post. Somebody at a certain time set up a work center, and everything which happens after that, whether it's the cycle time changes considerably, like with a couple of percent or something like that, that should be added to it automatically by the system. If somebody changed the cavity, You want to know the reason why they did it, and all those things which happen during the production process, during that work order should be logged. So you
Or
can
have
then
it,
go
have an
back.
option to do it, toggle it on or off. I want this to show
Yeah,
up in the bulletin, or
of
you
course.
don't
Yeah.
want it to show in the bulletin.
You should be able to log it,
So we
and
have
ideally automatically.
one lead oversees anywhere from 5 to 9 machines. And they're constantly walking the building, right? It'd be really cool if they could get that, well, we've got 2 buildings, between the 2 buildings. It'd be really cool if they could get that information.
And see quickly what's
from-
going on
right,
in the
from
different
the operators.
buildings. Right.
Yeah, the idea is that basically after the shift, if you're interested in what happened, or a new team leader is interested in what happened during that shift or the previous shift, you can just go to the work center and see everything what happened
Yeah.
without going through emails, or because now people
Right.
often email a lot of
Right.
things, or
Right.
this
Yeah,
was
those-
wrong,
that can
or
get
we had
lost
to
in the mail.
turn down the cavity. Because we have occasions where, like one team leader, they shut down a couple of cavities, and then the next team leader comes in and says, well, why did they do that? And they just
Turn it on.
switch them on, and then a day later then we have a lot of recall, or we have to scrap a lot of items because you know, it was a good reason to produce with less cavities,
Right.
but the other guy just didn't see that, and yeah. So those kind of things you should capture, and it shouldn't be like depending on people registering stuff. The system should help them and should sort of enforce that people record stuff like that, and they are welcomed into entering that information. And they it shouldn't be necessary to start an email on that. The system should all be in IQ, because some people write it down on paper, never
Right.
enter into an email. Other people put it in an email, but
Right.
often the team leaders, they just start and they don't have time to read all the emails.
There should be one centralized area for this kind of information.
Yeah, in the MES with the work center, you can just filter on it, or filter on a mold.
And we would very much like our leads, as they're overseeing the setup for a given part, to kind of see that history of the last several runs.
Gotcha.
It's 3 or 5 or whatever, but kind of say, okay, so these are the issues we had the last 3 times. This I'm not concerned with, this we fixed, this, oh, wait a minute, this is something we should really watch out for.
Zach?
I have a question about that. So you guys have mentioned these messages being connected to a few different things. So there's been the shift having like a set of messages. There's work orders having a set of messages. What are the different things that might have like a set of messages that come with them?
Well, I think it needs to be shift and bomb related or work order related.
So people would want to communicate. There's some information I need to tell other people with regards to this. There's information I need to tell people with regards to this work order.
We call it the story of that run, okay, because we have a run, and then the run is over multiple shifts, could be multiple days, multiple shifts. There are problems that we're seeing more in 3rd shift, and we're already seeing it in 1st shift, this story will bring it to light.
Okay.
To me, it should be shift, work center definitely. Probably also mold, because in 2 weeks' time the mold could run on a different work center. And then if the issue was mold related, you still want to be able to see that. So.
With this like kind of cascading set of things that might have messages, would you imagine that at the higher level you would see all messages related to anything contained within? So within a shift you have work centers and you have molds that all have messages attached to them. Would you only see the message if you were specifically looking at a certain level, or would you kind of have some higher level? So it's like the
Yeah.
So you have to save it really at the lower, so it's gotta be mold related, shift related, work center related, and then I wanna show me just for this mold, show me for this mold and this shift, show me this mold and this shift, and this bomb, right?
Yeah, we are now doing that basically in Excel. So we pull data out of IQ, and people we put all so that, well, it's Excel is not ideal, but
And you've got your Excel sheets broken up how? So you've got like a shift report and a a mold report, or is it all together in one big sheet?
We only use it for like adding qualitative information. So why was there a problem? Why did we change the cavities? So basically everything which we can't add in IQ, we add them and we connect them to a work center, a mold, or basically those are the choices. And then within Excel we can just easily filter, but the same you can do of course also in IQ. You just say, I just want to see that work center, or I just want to see that that tool or that BOM, but it's more or less tool related then I guess, because the BOM.
I see.
Or it could also be like in combination with a color, or so it's probably also blonde.
Shift is also very important.
Okay, so you've got
The
basically.
filter bar basically, I think.
You've got a information like report, and it's labeled either by shift or bomb or whatever it is, and you can use that filter capability to get what you want to see or look at all of it.
Well, a piece of information, it's like your key has multiple, right? It would be the shift, it would be the work center, it would be the standard, the bomb, and could be tool related because bomb and tool are not one-to-one relationship, right? So you gotta have, all that needs to be part of your key for that piece of information. And after that, you can then filter it any way you want.
I see, so it seems important to be able to scale the amount of data you're looking at based on what you want to look at. So do I want to see everything within a shift, or do I want to see just the tool information?
Would it
Okay.
be quality related to potentially production, quality, different departments?
Well, but then you can label it, then you can say, is this quality, this production, is it both, right? So that's almost like a toggle, a yes, no. But the key that identifies that piece of information needs to have all those indicators.
I don't think that, like with the bulletin boards, you need to tag them yourself when entering, but I think when it comes to the mold or the work center, you can basically store it automatically because the work order is running at with a certain tool, at a certain work center. So you don't need to ask user input on that. You just record it
And shift.
and shift automatically, and also the time. So immediately you can then tell whether you just want to see everything which happened in that shift, or everything at that work center within that shift, or at that work center within the last 7 days or something like that.
Does anybody use IQ log now? IQ log?
We looked at it, we found it plain. It's one of those areas always in the past said, well, nice intent, but it doesn't work. It doesn't work for me. It's too difficult getting information out of it. It's not user friendly to log into. That's why we created something in Excel, but it's also not ideal. But at least it gives the possibility to enter it very quickly and to also get like reports out of that.
Do you guys use IQ?
No, we've looked at it several times, talked about it several times, but we keep gravitating back to Excel. Because
And
of
that's a
those
user
reasons.
interface thing more than anything, right?
Yes, yep, and getting the information back out. You either have to write reports for it, or
Yeah, I know of another company, they basically enter it within the shift within Excel, and then next day somebody in the office will copy paste it into IQ log. But then still you can't really filter on a tool there or something like that, so it's rather
This is
think
all
it's on
text
there.
trains or something.
yeah, it's yeah.
That's
Yes.
good.
But it's, it's by shift, I believe, and I think you get down to the work center and the manufacturing number, but it doesn't have all the detail or the levels that you can get down to and getting the information out.
Yeah, you also don't have columns, like if you say you want to grasp if it's quality information or whether it's production information or something to do from technical, because they fixed the mold in between jobs and they would like to record something what they did. I'm also not sure how it interacts with, because the tool can also break down, so ideally you can also then from the terminal you can also create like a task for somebody to do some maintenance on a tool or on a work center, and that all information also should go into this work center log or something, because everything which happens between the start and the end of the job, you want to grab that and have that recorded, and ideally without as much as automated, but yeah, also with frownies and smileys and other information.
Likes and
Yeah.
Along those reporting lines, are there any plans to enhance the ability to take an MRO work order and have it, if it's related to that work center, have it be in the schedule? You know, right now we have, you can do the critical pieces of equipment, I believe it is, but you can't schedule anything else. So we're using downtime to say, here, we're scheduling this down for an MRO work order, but it'd be nice to identify which piece of equipment is causing that work center to be down. And we've got the work order out there, you just can't tie the two together.
Oh, okay, I see.
So only if it's, for that work center, does the MRO show
That you can actually
something
put in the
else,
schedule,
the
I believe.
pump,
from what
it's
we're-
not the whole machine, it's just the pump, so now we won't be scheduled. I think we cheat, we just say it is the whole work center, and then we just know that it's pump, but it would be nice if we didn't have to cheat, that'd be really nice. And are you guys ever gonna rework, are we ever gonna be able to schedule reworks on the actual machine rather than that alternative universe that's called rework?
I know that's been brought up, so. yeah,
I've been
we
talking
will
about it
need
for
to
6 years.
evaluate it.
But it's so frustrating, it's so frustrating.
Yeah,
Well,
to have-
it's a question of priority, right? So these are great ideas, I want to hear more, and then we need to prioritize. In a
What if
very
we-
objective way,
Yesterday.
otherwise we'll do all of yours first. So I read an article, I circulated this internally about, I sent it to Steve and you, I think, about messaging internal, like within the enterprise. And one of the article was about a message, like Facebook. I don't use Facebook, so I end up flipping from all over this. But there's a message board within Facebook. You can put messages, right? And you control how they show and where they appear and they go, you know. Is that something that we're talking about in terms of messages that
Like a newsfeed?
yeah, like a newsfeed that's coming internally into one place that you can now sort, filter, pull, and they just, you know, newest to oldest, and they just drop off. Is that something that we're talking about, or is it strictly?
I think when we talk about stuff that we want to keep with the work order or at least.
Okay, well, that's
so that
fine.
doesn't go away,
Right.
it's not just,
Well, they don't all go away. It's just
Okay.
they're on a message board that you can see. So I want to go in and look at the messages for this work center, and I'll see, you know, those. But they're all in one common spot. And it's not just the work center, the mold, or the tool, or the machine, or what have you. It's anything.
Yeah, I think the bulletin board, if you see it like status updates
Yeah.
from WhatsApp, or I'm also not on Facebook, so. But it's like status updates, but it doesn't show the context, it's just
Right.
text lines, so
Right.
you can't easily filter on whether it's like a quality issue or a MRO, or
Right.
somebody repaired something, or.
It
so
could
if-
be,
yeah.
it could be this shipment's about to be late.
well,
Right,
I
it
think
could
it's gonna
be-
be a little smarter than that, because what would happen, at least in my facility, and you guys tell me if yours is different, my leads, they're not very sophisticated in their use necessarily of technology. And if they see that this doesn't pertain to them,
Okay.
pretty soon they're gonna just not
Right, so-
necessarily look at it. So it's gotta be able to see.
We gotta be able to
if it's a
filter,
forming machine,
yeah.
this guy has to see everything that's forming. Somebody else wanna see forming and quality.
Yeah.
Somebody else wanna see
I'm just
pure
trying to
forming.
think how big we make this thing.
Well, we gotta be able to specify what goes to whom, I
Yeah,
think.
why?
You know, what do you guys think?
Like, otherwise it's just gonna be nice.
It's like,
Yeah, thank you, otherwise it's gonna be nice.
But, yeah.
Totally know what you're getting.
Because yeah, with the status updates, that works well, I think. But people should also be triggered when they change the cavities to immediately also add a reason to it, and that should be also added. They don't need to go change the cavity
Right.
and then also create like a status update separate
Right.
from that. It
Right.
needs to be in one go.
But like in Facebook, I can see just my messages, or I can have a page in Facebook that is not me, it's some interest that I have. So you could kind of make them generic to everybody or specific to a person. But I'm just trying to figure out, do we take, you know, one big approach for everything in the enterprise? So
Yeah.
alerts show up. And you know, you saw the deep embedding that Dan showed yesterday in WebIQ. You can embed the link in a message, right? So I get my message on my Facebook board, I get a message here of something and of interest, and I click on it and off I go. I go right to that, not even that module, but that page within the module. I see that. So, you know, just off the top of my head, someone goes on credit alert, can you look at this? And you send that person that message internally in this EIQ Facebook thing, and it routes to that person, and it says, this customer went on credit hold, and they've got a big shipment due, that we want to ship today. And there's a link that takes them to either the shipment to have a look at it, to release it or approve it, or it takes them to the AR and say, well, we haven't processed a credit note yet, or, blah, 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 right? Like, that's, like, how big do we want to make that? And once you have them in there, you can attach them then, I suppose, to a work order, or wherever you need to capture them permanently, as a permanent record. Right?
You just want to be careful that it doesn't become a lot of noise.
No, I get that. No, I totally get that.
Yeah, I'm also always be thinking more closely of the operator and of the team leader, not for the people in the offices. Not ultimately, they will also be able to see the information, but if you just show them
But for my
everything.
Facebook, I decide what I want to see, right?
Yeah.
So even though all the messages are in this bubble of things, but for my Facebook, my EIQ Facebook, I only want to see these things, right? That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, my main focus would be for now on the operator, and basically we want to have a tablet at each work center, so it only shows
Yeah.
that
Did you
work
put it on
center.
Did you do that? I know you were talking about that. Did you
Yeah,
have a tablet?
we have a couple of tablets, and we
So
got
they're
a
walking
pilot
around
with it.
and,
Yeah. Well, we want to, and that's also something I like to discuss. We want to also about the licensing, because we have like 8 people running in production. I don't want to give people a tablet and have them run around with the tablet in production. I just want to stick it on every work center. I want to stick a tablet on there, but the licensing is crap for that, because you need to license per tablet, and you need to buy the modules per tablet. So that's quite expensive if you have
sounds
like
like a
50 or
negotiating
60s.
thing you have to do that. Sounds like some negotiating.
No, but I think we also discussed yesterday the various options you have for
Yeah.
licensing,
Yeah,
and this one is,
yeah.
it's very complex.
Yeah.
And you
No,
don't want to, concurrent licensing is ideal. You just want to buy the modules,
Right,
and you want to buy a license for a tablet at a work center, but you don't want to
right.
think of buying which licenses or allocating licenses to a separate tablet. That's
Okay.
so inconvenient. It's just like with iPads and iPhones. It's also horrible if you need 20 people to have the same
Right.
license.
Right,
It's too much hassle.
yeah, okay.
I think with the communication tool, keeping it as simple as you possibly can, because otherwise they won't use it.
No,
Yeah.
People
It's
out
not
on
for
the floor.
sophisticated users.
Yeah.
no, I get that, and that's why
Operators and then-
Facebook pops in my mind, because it's so pervasive, and people are used to that kind of an interface.
And you're
Like I
talking,
said, I don't use it, but
you're talking about across IQ, not just in MES,
yeah,
right?
that's what I'm asking.
Right.
Should we take a step back and look around everywhere, not just in here?
I don't have MES.
Well, you should,
I'm
that's why you're
glad.
here, right?
No, actually, I'm here because I want to see Trevor's demo.
He's
You're
the
so
man.
popular.
Yeah, and you'd also have to be careful that, there may be too much information. You don't want your operator sitting there reading everything, You have to make it quick and easy for them to read any of these messages so that they can
Yeah.
move on with.
For me, for the operator, they basically should only see the stuff which is happening at their work center. So they're in front of the work center. They should be able to easily see what happened at the work center, this shift, previous shift. Or when they have an issue, but that's probably not the operator anymore. Then it's already like somebody would change the molds or the colors or the team leaders. If they run into an issue, they might want to go back 1 or 2 shifts, or the other time the same tool ran. But that's a different persona, so that would change. For the operator, they just need to click on a button and then they would see what happened within that shift or the previous shift. And you just like scroll, it would just be like
Yeah.
Facebook or
Yeah.
WhatsApp.
But I can, in Facebook, I just control what I want to see, right? And if we make it a common kind of engine, so down with the idea that you can get it down to the work center person who's going to only wants to see these 3 things.
Yeah.
But it's a common engine that drives the whole thing.
So I think from data entry, it should mimic like WhatsApp and Facebook probably, although I've never seen it, but that's just the same, like a couple of text of lines, and on the background, it
Yeah.
should capture all the
Yeah.
context
Exactly,
information.
Exactly.
This tool, this
Because it's the
mold,
context that's
this work
important.
center, this shift.
Right. Right.
Forget the
Okay.
shit.
Yeah.
You can put the links on
Then you
it.
can filter on it,
Yeah.
because if you I'm not sure how it is on Facebook, but on WhatsApp, if you have like a long list, you have to scroll a lot and to scan a lot. You can't filter on that, and still, for some people, it's easy to be able to filter on dates or on a mold number or on a work center, because otherwise it will just be a long list of information. But that sounds great, because we need something to grasp all these non-real-time information, because now we're using too much email and too much other things to grasp it. And people don't read the emails, or they don't have enough time to read all the emails. And finding something back in email, if you know, well, last time we ran the job, somebody sent an email, or was it like 2 months ago, 3 months ago, it's impossible to find that back. So that functionality would be really helpful.
That's a great
Yeah.
idea.
But yeah, it should grasp everything also automatically. So also when somebody changes a cavity, they should be able to enforce that they enter like a text. And if you don't like to enter the text, then that's fine. But I would be able to like enforce that if they change the cavity, they need to enter some
They
data.
can scan an answer to put it in text, right?
And if it's just you decide if you don't want to record it, just to record an X or something like that, that's fine. But most of the times they did it for a certain reason, so you want to grab that reason as well. So and that's what we've been missing for all these years. So.
You mentioned being able to set what you see. Could that be by a role again or a position? So like Smart
Yeah.
Page where you could build your
Yeah, I think so. Would have to be
workspace
something like that.
and apply it.
So they all know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have to make it as flexible as we can. Get it down to that work center operator person and all the way up to, probably no one looks at them all, but they should all be in one place.
Yeah.
And you can even do like a broadcast message, like from HR or from the company, everybody gets this particular one. It's from waffle day today in the cafeteria.
Very
And I
important
changed my
things
whole,
like that.
for this reason, because it's stroke waffle.
There's fire, please go out of the
Yeah.
building.
That's good.
What else?
I have a question. Sure. I mean, not to be totally related, or maybe it is. Right now, material exception is, if a work order is scheduled, material exception goes by the schedule. We would like it to always go by the must ship date.
Oh, okay.
Because what happens sometimes is, we've got some buffer. So on the schedule, it says it's gonna take 4 more days,
Right.
but in reality, we're gonna bring people over the weekends for 2 shifts to kind of close that gap. But then we're there and the raw material isn't there because the materials exception has said, oh, we don't need it until another 4 days.
Gotcha. Okay.
So is that a big deal? I mean, is it anybody else, is that bothering anybody else? I mean, we're late 1 or 2 shipments every month because of this.
Yes. All right. Well, that's something that we can take a look at. And again, prioritize when that can fall in.
So it's almost like a checkbox. Do you want to do it maybe by a work
whether
center?
this way or.
Or if you want to work this way or that way?
Exactly.
Looking about the resources you were having, because you mentioned yesterday there are a lot of things which around this which cost resources.
Mhm.
Because to me personally, the Web IQ, I don't really find it that exciting.
You're not allowed to say
I'm
that.
not allowed to say that. There's somebody from marketing in the room. Or
No, but me, I'm the exact opposite.
Yeah.
I can't wait for that
Yeah.
because then I can put tablets on my floor.
Right. So
Okay.
anybody who's got
Yeah.
any kind of remote issue access is gonna love that product.
And I can put
If
at
you're all
least like
using
50 on
desktop
my
today,
floor.
you can happily use
That I
it
don't
for,
You got license.
Yeah, we use things flying
What
and
would that
Citrix, so
be?
yeah.
it works.
That's part of my issue, licensing, but it's also, I don't have to have something hardwired on the floor at a workstation then, which is why I don't have as many on the floor as I would like to have on the floor.
Well, that's true, but then licensing becomes an issue too, so that's the first barrier.
The cost, yes.
So
that has to be,
That's what's stopping me from getting all excited. I'm waiting for the other shoe to fall and see how much better it's going to charge for it. And then I'll know if I'm
But
excited
it,
or not.
yeah, but it's interesting because you can run this Web IQ to run on tablets, but you also have the Android app. So are they going to compete, or which one is eventually one going to
I don't want somebody to
Android?
have a phone. I don't want them to have an Android. I need something that they can see
Yeah.
and actually plaster it at a work center
Yeah,
without
those are-
having to have cabling
Yeah.
run across my floor.
But that's still the
No.
Android, I mean, not the Android, but you're doing it on a browser.
And we're using wireless.
Yeah, but I have wireless in each of my individual buildings, so they would just be, it's all local, it's all crap, but there's nothing, no.
But yeah, the web IQ will, it will take some while
So
before it's
not
like
because-
touch friendly.
Of our security.
it's-
So it's
the
probably
box
gonna
is-
last a couple of
You
years
go out.
The
anyway.
box is gonna look
You
exactly like the
lose.
desktop version, right?
So you're not
I have
able,
to have my
you,
house, so you use-
well, in theory, you could
But
use
that's not
it.
what she's asking, she wants to
So-
be able to go on a tablet and do that. right?
Yeah,
What
but
she
you
does
know,
today.
because it's not going to be optimized for tablets
Yeah, well.
within
no,
the first year,
for-
so.
For tablets, it's probably, it's gonna be fine.
It will be perfect.
Yeah.
Well,
it'll
But
be-
you need on-screen
Real estate-
keyboard
I
and.
mean, how big is your tablet is the question. I mean, your real estate is gonna be, you know.
It's gonna be enough that the only thing they have to do is production report and open documents.
So
Fair
for
enough.
those tasks, yeah, so you saw, not on this road, but our overall one, we've got WebIQ 2.0 mobile, right, which is where we'd be creating UIs that are specific to smaller devices, right? So
Yeah.
from a desktop, laptop to a tablet, it should scale, HTML5 scales quite nicely to the device that's sitting on. Like Dan said, you can use it on a phone, but it's not really practical.
Right.
Right, so that's what that is the 2.0 is, we're going to put some form factors that fit the phone specifically, but they'll just be smaller versions, so you won't get an entire sales order, you'll just get these things that you need, sort of thing. So if you're on the road, what do you need to do? I need to do these 10 things, so that's what we're talking about there. So the whole, usability of the HTML5 is a whole different topic, right? Because it's not modern today, right, how you flow through. It's not, the checkbox and the X and all, that's all kind of old desktop things, that's all gonna change over time.
What do you mean with production report?
Assembly track.
Okay,
Yeah.
but it involves a lot of data entry or?
No, it doesn't involve a lot of data entry because
But
they
you can
just
do it.
go to their process, labor reporting, and they get a little tiny screen unless they have rejects.
Yeah.
Now, it's not that
A couple of
complicated
clicks.
of a
So she can
screen.
do it at the source right there.
Right.
Yeah, that's what.
So we tried tablets, and we got hard pushback on the instructions. So now we've got full-size monitors at the workstation.
Which is why I don't have that on the floor. They all have to walk over to one common shared place, do that. And if their timing is off, then we get negative inventory in the next
Right.
processing.
Right.
So,
We stopped that, and we put them on the individual benches with first thin clients, then we went to the mini PCs, because they're about the same cost as the thin.
that's what I have many.
Yeah, and it's worked out fairly well, if we could get them to actually do the reporting.
Right, now, you can't control that, so that's operational, but for me to be able to have that on the floor at the station and then just touch whatever they need,
Right.
instead of having to mouse and click at all of the different work centers on the floor, because our work centers are all people work centers. There's very few that are actually machines,
Yeah,
where we
ours
have
is
some,
almost
but
all
not
people.
many machines, it's all people work centers. So they're constantly doing their stuff, walking over, reporting, and a lot of our work orders are done in ones because of the traceability of passing the paperwork. They're not done in multiples and the size of our product. So for them, that's why I'm anxious for WebIQ. For me, that would be perfect.
Trevor, I
And then if
see-
we move those tables around the floor, there's nothing, no wiring, here you go, just park your little thing wherever you want.
They rearrange.
I'm still curious on the web IQ
Yeah.
versus the Android apps, because in 2 years' time,
Let's see, we did.
will one of these have died then, or?
Let's look at just the genesis of our product in general. Shop data, assembly data, and those other applications are essentially different than your front-end applications. Different process, different design, different functionality in mind entirely. One of them's really data entry heavy, the other one's not. I mean, we do a lot of data entry through it, but it's not, I don't need 15 fields to move an IO around. I need 2, 4. But then our sales order, slightly different ballgame. I need a lot more info. So these two product lines, to my mind, at least currently, PM can just tell me to shut the heck up whenever they want. If they're separate, we'd be handling them separately. One of them's going to be focused on getting the end user from your CSR perspective, from your front office perspective, running, and that's WebIQ. The back end, where your real work is done after work, that's a terrible way of saying it, but you know, shop people. Where the hands-on work gets done, we'll call it.
You know you are a front office person now,
I
right?
know.
Careful.
I hope it's a different hat, I'm getting used to it. But you know, where the work gets done, where the people are doing stuff, we need to optimize the applications around that behavior, just as we've been talking about. So to my mind, they're very different applications, they're very different paths, and they have very different UX and UI requirements. I mean, I can reasonably I could be relatively certain that my front office language will tend toward more homogeneity than my shop floor language usage. Seem like a fair statement?
Yeah, because we all enter the cell servers pretty much the same way, but we have many
Right.
different ways. of
But in the shop floor,
doing it.
when I'm hiring minimum wage, I get a broader spectrum of people, just in general. So, you know, we have to design with that in mind. That come off as weird and xenophobic, I didn't mean it to.
No, it makes a lot of
But that's the idea.
Yeah,
It's
the
the
use
reality
cases
of
for
the world.
those are very, very different.
And so from my perspective, there's two different paths to follow. And from my perspective, there'll be two different release patterns for those things. That answer your question, Niels? I probably went
Yeah,
50 pounds of detail.
I think so. I still think, yeah, in production for the operators and team leaders, probably the Android apps would still be the most logic ones.
Right.
rather
Well,
than
who's
running
to say
the
they
web browser.
remain Android apps?
Right.
Just
Much security.
let that cogitate through your mind race.
I'm sorry, what's what you said?
Who's to say that they remain Android apps?
That they are?
Who's to say that they remain Android apps?
Right.
Who's to say that we don't standardize in something else? Who's to say we don't have the ability to maintain an Android application at the same time as a web application? That's what our team's cogitating through right now.
Mhm.
But yeah, just let that percolate through a little bit.
I just want to be able to just switch on a box and ideally have it automatically logged on and no fuss with browsers and stuff like that.
If you're true HTML5, you ought to be a lot more independent.
If I were to make a decision right now as the team leader, that would be what I would say. But you know, we also have to balance the other side of the equation. We have the existing Android users out there, and the apps that are designed around leveraging the native power of the tablet versus what you can do through a web browser. The technology on the HTML5 side is catching up. Just as a great example, my personal favorite one. Has anybody thought about plugging a USB device into my computer and having it interact with my browser directly at a very deep level? Does that terrify anybody else from a security and safety perspective? So that's what I'm saying. The technology behind Android, that's doable. It's safer. We have to write direct drivers. If I'm doing that straight from a browser, a little shadier. But the technology is catching up with that. So these are the things we're weighing and balancing as we make these decisions.
That is one thing I'd like to comment about the RT stations, the security, keeping people focused on what they should be doing out on the floor is great. I don't have to worry about them figuring out how to get out to the web. I mean,
Wondering somewhere else, yeah.
yeah, if they get out to the web on that RT station, they've got way too much time on their hands.
Right, and you know, there's clever people will do clever things. We'll say that. There's no one more clever than third shift. Let me just put it that way. It is amazing what I've heard come down almost exclusively from third shift in various aspects of my job at this company. Yeah, that's kind of the ideal. And, you know, with the RT stations, one of the things we were aiming for was to make that experience for you guys doable from the security perspective without putting a lot of onus on your IT group. As we move forward to a more web-based model, that's something we have to examine and take a look at. I mean, you guys want flexibility or ease? That's
Well, with the Android apps, you also control like the full stack. You know which device it will run on, and otherwise with PC sometimes you have these things. Well, this website runs best in Chrome. And that one you need to use Internet Explorer, and ultimately the hardware will become older.
Does anything work better on your Explorer?
Yeah, that's
I'm
what I
just
was
checking.
thinking, but for the
Anybody
sake
else?
of example, I think it was just for the sake of example.
Other than Bing?
Other than that.
Which doesn't really.
But yeah, that's just, I'm not saying we're doing one thing or the other here, don't take it that way, but
Yeah.
these are the things that as a development team, that's why I'm excited to see Fred and Zach Ulivari, our test lead extraordinaire. You guys didn't meet him, this guy is pretty amazing. And Courtney's also pretty amazing, but you guys are good as well. So. I don't need to reiterate that. And Fred, you've been doing the rounds, so.
Yeah, right.
That's why I'm glad they're here, listening to you guys, hear about this, because this is what we as a team need to make sure that we're cognizant of. So they get their stuff, they're getting our stuff. So on that note, I was able to do a couple things really rapidly while we were sitting here. Not that I wasn't paying attention, but I do have an Android emulator set up, so I can show some of that. I'd also like to show the track and trace a little bit that we talked about. Did you segue into this at all?
I'm sorry?
Did you segue into the track and trace at all?
I
Before I just
mentioned
jump
it,
in,
yeah, I mentioned it earlier, that you were gonna do a demo of it.
All right. And dissenters, I know that's why we're here.
Mhm.
So, cool. So before I jump into that and cut everybody off, jerk that I am, is there any further stuff that we've got going on in this topic that we're running down that I just expounded upon unnecessarily for 5 minutes?
Yes, but they can resume.
First things first.
Figure we can have Trevor demo a couple of things and then take a little break, and then we can continue on after the break.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
To tie that in, Trevor, track and trace is built in Angular, which is set up to be optimized for use on any device. So we haven't focused on that yet.
But this is a beautiful example of a front office versus a shop floor application. This is a front office application I'm about to show you that has strong ties into the MES world. So with that, let me minimize everything. I hope no weird notifications pop up.
But you don't have to have MES.
No, well, you actually do have MES. You have it right now. If you're producing stuff on your shop floor through our system, you have MES.
Yeah, I was gonna go down that road and didn't want to appear ignorant, but now I will. So.
It's okay, I look
MES
ignorant all the time.
Is MES a group of applications, a single
So,
application?
from our perspective, MES is what our base software is. At the end of the day, we started in the shop floor as a company. That's who we are. We've done a lot more since then. Our accounting, I think, is reaching a level that's excellent and continually improving. But shop floor scheduling, production monitoring, dispositions, inventories, transactions, everything you do around the shop floor on a day-to-day basis, that technically falls under the MES umbrella.
Okay, good, because that's what I was thinking,
Yeah.
because it's a process, not an application.
Right.
It's a series of applications.
But actually, the way they put in there, like your website, it says ERP and MES.
Yeah.
So on your website, it almost looks like they are two completely separate.
Do you want to know the secret behind that and why? From
To draw more people in who know.
We actually have we do a fair amount with various customers who do not want any of the other functionality. They just want to be able to schedule and work with their software. So we've developed packages around that. Integrations to other ERP systems where their system of records is. I know a couple people in this room may have some experience with that. Where we're getting data from their system of record and dumping it into our schedule. Their schedule is pretty awesome.
Your
So
schedule
then-
is amazing.
So then
compared to
just scheduling is just finite scheduling when you're talking about
Yeah.
that. Okay.
It's a traditional definition.
So then, yes, I have MES.
You do, yeah.
And use it all the time.
That's what we were talking about yesterday. Like, yes, you do.
Yes, I do. However, they are not scheduling.
You're not scheduling in
3/4 of our company will not schedule because of the amount of time it takes, even with an auto load, even with using the back thing that can preload based on the date it takes. Your order's not there and it'll backdate everything with the back in the schedule, they will still not do it.
Do you have
Oh,
anything?
still not
Cool.
Do you think that's like a psychological barrier, or do you?
No, it's a physical for them, not having the manpower to cover it, because our supervisors are the people who schedule their divisions, and they're on the floor. So they're not just behind the desk adding things to the schedule, they whiteboard it.
My guys are on the floor as well, and we have a station for them on the floor, and that's.
No, I mean physically on the floor working.
Yeah, my guys as well, my
They,
leads.
I have been forcing this issue since 2008. Our bombs are broken down appropriately. I've had them come and talk to IQ because they didn't believe me 3 or 4 years ago. And they said the same thing I said. You have to do this, you have to do this. They just don't have the time to sit and add things to the schedule. We've been using an auto load for the work centers. and then taking them off. They just won't do it. And they don't have any clerical or administrative backup for those people to do that. So if they don't have the resources, it's faster for them to write it on a whiteboard.
Do they transfer it then to a spreadsheet?
No.
Oh, okay. Because that's what we do in our shop. Like, when we do my hour by hour report, that gets transferred to a spreadsheet, it gets consolidated to a
Yeah.
spreadsheet. Then they call me and say, can you write a report that reads from my spreadsheet?
And they don't actually even look at the work orders themselves for that level. They look at what's on our open order report for what we're shipping at the highest level and know what components go into that.
Oh, yeah.
Just because of tribal knowledge, because our bumps are broken
Wow,
down
that's
between
a-
departments, because they consume at the lowest level in a different department, that's an in batch that goes into this, and we make that, and it goes into
So
this, and it
we kind of had that issue
together.
initially when we got our QMS, our bombs weren't where they were supposed to be, and we used just the first position is what mattered, anything else was
I know.
just, who cares?
Yep.
And then about 2-3 years ago, we took it on as a task. We came here for training, a whole bunch of us, and we cleaned up our bombs. As far as just, because it would say it would go on this machine when it actually was running on the other machine,
No,
right?
our
Even
bombs
at
are
that level.
clean.
Okay.
The bombs are perfect. They're broken down by the constraints that need to be scheduled, and everything else can fall into place.
So we've
It
got,
is just a fact of them physically putting it on the schedule.
we've got, within Providian, we've got 3 ERP systems. 2 facilities use IQMS, the other 2 use other systems. And in the other system, I have a full-time scheduler, and it is such a struggle. In IQMS, once we cleaned up the bombs and we started using it the way these guys intended for us to use, we use about 7% of our time to schedule. So I have to say
Yeah.
people are on the floor working, and it just takes up, it's
And
so.
I completely agree, and I hit them up actually a few weeks about it again, and said, when are you gonna do this? You told me you would do this, when are you gonna make your people do it?
But we did
To
go
the
through,
VP
it was a
operations.
psychological,
Not till fiscal
Barrier.
2019, maybe.
So is the MRP accurate when you're running MRP?
No.
No, that's where we get.
And they know
It
that.
falls apart.
So they're also manually writing requisitions.
so the reason why, what Robert just mentioned won't necessarily work for us as well is because my guys, when they dispo, based on the schedule, they also make sure that the raw material in the system, the lot number matches what they're actually having. And even though it's correct 92% of the time, they've been so trained, it's been so hammered into them that they have to check that, and for that 8% when the material handler didn't bring the right lot, but that's, and to go to check that, the inventory and the application is the right lot number and so forth, that would be, might be just a little too difficult to do on a smaller screen.
This should create all sorts of problems because you have no idea what capacity you have or how
Yeah,
busy
that's right.
certain work centers are.
Right, and
Lead
most
times
of
are-
ours are people, so they just move people around. Because we
So
don't
you get
have
away with it.
dedicated people. It's not machine.
If you have a machine, you would be able
The
to.
machines are the constraints.
Right.
However, the people just move around to whatever.
So what I'm hearing from you is that you need a more rapid and flexible way to schedule your applications that's more readily available on the shop floor.
Mhm.
You schedule your work orders.
Yeah, and
More
I've
than
been
anything.
having that discussion for a while with Stephen and a few other people.
It's like an auto load super plus.
Like some sort of ultra finite scheduling,
Yes.
some sort of like enhanced scheduling
Uh-huh.
module of some sort.
Yeah.
I've got an interesting issue right now. Finance is telling me you're not producing enough when I'm going to my schedule. I'm like, look, we're good. So we know we have a disconnect somewhere. We're not sure where it is. If I didn't have the scheduling ability to see that we're
Well, I'd
fine,
say
we'd be
some of
making
it
wrong
too.
decisions.
Some of it too, it doesn't take your capacity of your work center hours into consideration. And it doesn't take your labor that's available when you're scheduling. So some of our stuff we have to shift around just because we don't have people there to do certain things. So it's not that work center's always available because it's people. Those people might be placed somewhere else, so.
And that's a good point. You know what would be really, really cool if you had the schedule, because
It's always on class.
it's not always a full shift. It's not always a full 2 shifts. Give us that flexibility to say, I run this shift, first shift all week, but only on Mondays and Fridays I run in second shift as well. 'Cause
For
right
the
now-
work centers.
Per work center,
Right.
yes. Because right now, it's like it's all or nothing. And so we find ourselves eyeballing it and saying, well, you know, we're gonna put only one shift, but we know it's a shift and a half. So this red is not really a red because we know we're gonna, but it'd be really, really nice. Can you type it in? It'd be really, really nice if we had, you know, more granularity as to when is that shift running. Maybe we're running a shift and a
You
half.
can
and based
use
on
the
the day.
days off for that, but you have
Oh,
to.
the managing,
like,
that is a nightmare.
That's a pain, so you have
That's
to,
a
like a
nightmare,
recurring
yes.
Friday afternoon.
We've actually had a
Yeah.
couple of other customers mention the same thing, so we are looking into doing something around that, being able to have
Looking for
different
options.
schedules for different days.
Yes.
Because they're, you know, we know a few customers that they run 8 hours Monday to Friday, but then on the weekends, 12-hour
Yep.
shifts, you know, so, yeah, we're looking into those.
Is anyone using the labor capacity with the scheduling through time and attendance, say absence calendar or anything like that?
We use it.
How is that working? for
The
you?
absence calendar works well. Because we also do payroll out of it.
But not tied into your labor capacity like work?
No, because a lot of ours, we do a lot of assembly, track 90% of assembly. And you can't really specify the people themselves that are assigned. You can assign, if they have like a certified level in workforce to do that, but it doesn't drill down as low as like to your employees, who's available, who's not available. Which is also something I've brought up that I've talked about like the last user meeting. It'd be nice to have that, so you know when people are currently scheduled to be out and what resources you have that you can plug to those work centers that'll also help with scheduling. Sorry.
No. So from my
I
perspective,
wanted this passed.
this is
This is
what
what we're looking for.
Yeah, this is what that was just pure product gold from my perspective. Probably hers too, but I
Yes.
no. And Rob's as well. My team back there is pretty excited about it as well. So thank you guys very much for that. That was good info. That being said, I'd like to take a few moments here to show you an application that's 100% ready to ship. No
And it's so
questions
cool,
asked.
I will have to say
No,
so
no,
cool.
it's in dev, guys. I got asked to very specifically say it was in dev.
So cool.
One of the things we're experimenting with moving forward is releasing features out of band with major releases so that we can give you what you want without having to wait for a major release in such a fashion that it doesn't have a KI impact. So this is coming up in the very near future. It's rapidly approaching finished. So expect to see some UI issues. Expect to see a couple little flips and flops there. The craftsmen in the back of the room are freaking out over it, so I'm having a little fun at their
So
expense.
we're furiously typing is who's broke.
All right, so guys, welcome to Lot Track and Trace, our advanced recall and analysis tool. This is something that we saw as necessary in both food and beverage, medical, automotive, and a variety of other applications for when you get called and you have to get audited. Or your customers say, hey, we had a contaminated product. Who else did this go to? What was it made of? And where else did that go? Because we might have a serious emergency on our hands. So I'm going to go ahead and log in. You can see we're piloting out some stuff we want to do with the UX and UI moving forward. So take a look. You're going to see a slightly different look and feel with some familiarity. Logged in. Loading. Please wait. There we are. So we're going to focus today on recall and analysis. There's more features coming down the line.
You can, I have an order if you want to.
Okay.
Those
We'll play with this though.
Okay.
This is really cool stuff. So anyway, this is a recall and analysis. We're going to hop on in. You're going to see a tabular interface where we can set up different searches for different pieces of material or information we care about within our system. So multiple data types are present that we can search versus, and of course, you know, we're always open to more input, and Zach's already raising his hand.
Do you want to talk about the personas we built before?
Certainly, if you'd like to.
Well, everyone cares about the personas, so I want to know if our personas are
Okay. Speak to the person.
Why don't you speak to this?
Okay. So for recall and analysis, this persona that we're trying to tackle is somebody who's your head of quality, pretty much. He's the head QA engineer, who's in charge of all these audits, who's talking to other customers. He or she is somebody who's very familiar with the system, very familiar with the up and down traceability that he needs to find for these lot numbers, serial numbers, and with all the different tabbing that's present, we included that because this person doesn't necessarily know what they're looking for. They just know that something's wrong or something needs to be identified, and they're just looking at everything. So it's a quick way of here are your starting points, and you can drill down and go crazy with whatever search you're looking for. This person also wants to be able to export that data to mirror exactly what they have on their screen into Excel, so they can send that off to an auditor as an example, or their higher ups or their shop floor workers to look at what they found. So that's the main persona that is encompassed with recall and analysis.
We had a discussion within the company a couple of weeks ago, and also between the quality person and like the scheduler or logistics guy. And the outcome of that within our company was that the quality person, they don't know their way around IQMS that much. And they don't know all the materials and the tracking, and they're not IQ specialists. So the quality person's idea was that it should belong with the logistics and the scheduling department, but definitely a front office experience kind of thing, because he knows everything about the materials going in. And the quality, they are more into sampling and testing and other stuff. But with us it's still a front end thing, but with us it's a scheduler which should use this.
So the idea here too is to make it as simple to use as possible, as it literally could fall in anybody's hands. Quality auditor calls up, hey, you guys received lot number 123.
Mm-hmm.
Who has it? What's it in? Where'd it go? Who handled it? So let's go ahead and try that out. And if I mistype, please recognize I'm doing this sideways. So this is actually ripping through the entirety of translog right now, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So I just ripped through an entire large translog to find out anything that had lot number 123 in it. So let's go again. Locate. Resizes nicely, as you can see. Sorry, trying to get this going. So I can scroll through this list. I can see various serials. As I said, there's little flickers as it lazy loads, so it's not pulling everything at once to speed up the delivery. I can define groups, I can define serials, I can say I really care about the item numbers that this is in more than anything else. So I want to see that on the far right. I can reorder it, I can do whatever I want. I then can group by as well. Drag it up there, show me everything I got. So this went into this item. You see,
Directly in or final?
I believe it goes down a little bit in terms of, do you guys remember if it goes through the Vomtree iteratively?
The way that the lot will work is it'll look at everything that consumed that lot and everything that that lot went into. So if that lot went into another intermediate lot, so it went into a different lot that's not an FG lot number, it'll include that information and it'll also include all the way up to the FG.
So I want from a raw material, I would want a raw material to its ultimate finished good that's shipping out the door.
As long as
And
they're
that
all
lot
tied to
number-
that same lot, it should show up in this list.
That lot number is for the raw material, it's consumed, but it becomes a different lot number for the batch that would go into another product. It would go into something else that may have a serial number and no longer a lot number anymore because now it's become a different kind of product. But I would still want to know, just like your where used the whole way down, the whole way down to see it's directly used here and the whole way up.
How is this different than real-time work order history?
Because I think this is excellent, but I didn't need to know that.
The
A
way
lot
that
of
you would
different
get
ways, I
there.
guess.
This would be
There's
more like the
these
lot
on all of
number
those, so let's
functionality
say
you have in
your
IQ.
scenario, you
Well,
have
Not
that is,
tracking.
material lot
but that is
put
in
into
real-time
the
work
lot.
order
Now
discussion,
we're
isn't
looking
it?
at manufacturing. And you can click on the other lot. and
But I
it'll
don't,
open
want-
up
but I
a
don't wanna
list.
have
This
to
one.
have.
I'm sorry, I meant lot
Lot
number
tracking,
tracking.
now.
Lot number.
There's some
So
aspects
it
of that
does say-
present, but look at this as the V2
We
of
got
that.
this,
more
Right, so what?
raw
The
material
V2 of
is
that,
bad.
more functionality, more
We find
availability.
that.
Because Danny
a
just
year
talked
after
about
we
going
use
down and
it.
going up, all that is in
I
the lot
wanna
number
know
tracking.
all
Right.
of the
It's, I mean, this user
documentation
interface
to the
is far
customers
nicer, don't get me
that
wrong.
had that
And there's more to it than that.
easily
Really?
in one
Recall
click,
analysis to it.
without having them
A little more directly
to drill
and
down
export
here,
it
then
themselves.
put in that item.
So what we currently do is manually write down what did go what, and then say this is what needs to be recalled, you're doing
So it's like an
automatic.
inverted
Exactly.
boundary, with your serial number. Yeah.
We talked about that.
That's my, that would be my ultimate in, yes, this is perfect for us.
Yeah, it's been discussed,
That's
that's
good to
more,
hear, because we talked about that.
yeah, more of a V2 thing. Right now, you can get there, it's just
You know,
gonna
this is
take
kind of,
extra
remember when we
Like-
transitioned from DOS
but the
to
clicks will
Windows?
automatically
And all us
populate
DOS
that
people
search
knew all
and
the
give you all
shortcuts
the
and stuff, all of a
information
sudden
you
we
need.
lost all that.
But yeah, it's been
uh,
discussed
precious
more of a version
advantage
2.
over
Right now.
because
Because any of my
anytime
other
you come
users
click, I have
They
some
call
people
me
who live in this
and have me do all
lot
that
number
stuff.
tracking.
It's like,
and
you
they're
should
so
be able
good at
to
it now.
quickly
And
just,
No, it's not- it's not
coming down
going
the
away.
click, they're gonna be bummed.
yep,
It's not going.
this is where it was.
Well, no, I mean, but you got a better
You
tool.
need to
now. We don't
contact
need
these
to be an
customers and
expert in
tell them,
immediately.
We've got a problem.
Yeah, we're definitely working towards that. One thing that we're trying to enforce with our development cycle is the iterative process. So we'll give you the starting steps, and then based off of feedback, then we can build on top of that, build on top of that. So this is good feedback so that we are, reinforcing things that have come up that we have planned for, the next iteration. Is like you said, you want that inverted bomb tree type of look that has been discussed, and it's definitely on our roadmap for this product. It's just not going to be included in that initial release.
So just to party on what Courtney's saying here, here's kind of the approach we're starting to take. Everybody's favorite diagram. So historically, we've moved in this model. This is waterfall. Customer, you tell me you want a car. So we work on wheel, double wheel, frame, put it all together, car. Did you actually need a car? Maybe you just needed to get around. And all this time, we've been building and developing without that knowledge. So here's the model we're trying to move towards. We're going to start you off with a skateboard. You can start moving around. You can start telling us what's good and what's bad. Go here, it needs to go a little faster, need more stable. Get you a scooter, bike, motorcycle for even more speed, car. But let's say right here, you're like, well, you actually have to get on water quite a bit. It's a lot easier to pivot to a boat from here than it is up there. So that's what Courtney was speaking to. I just really love this diagram that Trevor Fry found, so show it to everybody. This is the ideal. That's why we're talking to you guys about it today, is to start getting some of that feedback.
Can I ask a couple questions?
Of course. Do I need to put that image back up that I just went with?
No, this image is fine. How is this different from lot tracking today where you can put in 1, 2, 3 and do your reverse lot tracking and get everywhere that?
I started with lot. This has a lot more functionality. I can do the same for PO numbers, shipments, work orders, everything across the board.
And is it true lot number tracking, where if I have raw material of 1, 2, 3 that is a resin, and then 2 years down the road I get a finished good lot number that somebody assigned 1, 2, 3, is it going to give me both of those in one screen?
It can, yes. But that's why we have all the sorts and group bys. So I just threw it in items so I can see it here. Also have lot numbers separated out. So I can break it down and say, hey, I can go into these items, see what was made, no lot numbers on that guy. 1, 2, 3 on that guy. So case in point, got the same one, but it's moving through. But again, it's a little more than just that. There's work order traceability, which we're going to ramp through, unless you guys want a break right now, but I'll keep talking. So anyway, just to clear it all out, make it clean. So this is the idea. Here's where we're going. See, these are all pulled straight from Translog. Every one of these is sortable, filterable, groupable. It helps you guys actually determine more rapidly in a little cleaner format. And then at the end of the day, I can take all these things and export directly to Excel. So let's say I wanted to see work order this. Okay, so I identified this might be a problem. Click in, opens up a new tab, shows me every disposition versus that work order. Every action versus that work order in Translog. So that we can start tracking down, like, okay, we got some bad parts. Was it Jim T shop guy or Jane T shop girl that were touching these parts that went bad? It helps you guys start analyzing these things.
Can you click on the
Yeah, because from the,
left, down? Yeah.
So this is a more sophisticated way to read the translog?
In part, yeah, it's doing a couple things.
from this, would I also be able to see which lot number the resin would be? And then create a separate tab for that?
So those 3 lines underneath are associated with that finished good at the top.
Just run right back.
And
So here's all that stuff that's part of that. Going through, I'm sorry, clicks too soon. Like to point out too, just the rapidity at which this is accessing Translog. To me, it was pretty exciting.
Well, this is great potential. So this is going to be available when?
Soon.
That means what, 16.0
Soon.
hours?
So like I said earlier on, we're looking at trying to release these things out of band with major feature releases. This is essentially an add-on module. Ostensibly, if everything's in place in terms of the schema of 16, I can release it a week after or a week before without any trouble.
So are we going to have to purchase this separately, or is this going to come part of what we currently have?
I believe this is a separate product offering. But, you know, I'll lean towards product management. Like I said before yesterday, Stephanie, I just build it. And coordinate with product management and sales for the sale of the product. And we're wrapping up this one, so it's time to start talking about how it's sold.
Because right now what we're doing, I mean, we're reading the translog to get this information, right?
Mhm.
So you're giving us a better viewer to the
Mhm.
translog.
Yep.
very quick.
Extremely quick. So you may be hearing from us soon, some of you guys with a very large translog, to see if we can really beat the crud out of this.
Give it
What?
Say give it yum.
Cool. So I got a couple other examples. I'll pull them up.
Trevor, would you feel comfortable going through a scenario like we just talked about? Get a call, my raw materials vendor says, you know, I sent you a bad product
Certainly.
8 months ago. So you need to know where this went and contact the people who
The ultimate
received this
destination.
and ask them to return it.
Yep, we can do that.
Oh, almost never.
It does happen.
He's being facetious. It happens.
And it all depends on your industry too.
And
The
that's-
industry I'm in the defense industry, we have to contact those customers immediately. So,
Yeah.
because we do insulated rocket motors, so, and to go.
People are touchy about those?
Sorry?
People are touchy about those working?
Just a little when we're bombing ISIS.
Sorry. Just about spit water. Thank you for that.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so that's where I was kind of starting with this. Let's say I received bad lot, or lot number 1, 2, 3. Everything was bad as soon as I find my mouse again. And I want to say, hey, what items, you know, I got a bunch of different lot number 1, 2, 3s that I could receive. Not everybody uses like smart incoming lot numbering. That's a reality. So there may be multiple out there. So I can then go say group by item. I care about, let's say, this guy right here. So what was made with this? All these serial numbers. I can
Could
then
even be with items.
right.
Something that you've taken your raw material in and because you've measured it incorrectly, which I had this discussion with him yesterday. Measured it correctly, you produced it wrong. you gotta trace that batch the whole way up and recall everything.
I can say these shipping or these pack slips went or received it, so I can then go back through and export and say, all these pack slips that we shipped out, these are bad. We have to pull them back in right now. Contact the customers, get this going. This is your starting point for getting that information.
So do you have to go in one by one, or can you say, show me the aggregate for,
Show me the customers that are the subset of that.
or, yeah, you need the customer, you need the tax slip, and you need the item on the tax slip, right? Because not necessarily everything on the tax slip.
Is
Right,
the
the
customer
ultimate
information
end
present
user.
from here yet? Or did I just not scroll over? Shipped to customer name, the,
But the item number is missing from that, so if you send 10,
It's right there.
10 items to the customer, okay.
yeah, right there. So from here to here to here, I can just rapidly go through and, can I control click and open up new tabs, or is it?
It automatically opens up a new tab if you click a linked search item.
You can just export them all to Excel. So
Yep,
that's,
so I'm gonna go do this and just open up a couple of them as an example. And then I'm gonna go, okay, export all tabs to Excel. And hope I don't have anything weird in Excel open right now. It is review time of year. It's going through all the data I got.
Did
I-
you test it also with
tired.
thousands or like a lot of rows?
Yeah, that's one of the things we're doing. We're always looking to do more.
He doesn't have a lot.
Be
I have
nice
one.
if you had a progress bar.
They're so wrong.
Yeah.
But it's better to see it moving than just seeing something going.
Well, that's just like,
Well, right, you don't know right now, is it working, or is it broken?
It's working.
Right. It's very nice to see that, because sometimes when you do schedule update, once it hits a certain point, it just sits.
So as
And you're
a,
like, okay, what are we
as,
doing?
as a kind of note about development, sometimes you're unable to assess what progress is.
Yeah.
So would a message to the effect of, it's still going, be more helpful, like if we don't know.
And it may be a time with it.
Sure.
So even if it says it's going, it's like, how long has that been sitting there?
Right, yeah.
Or
'cause-
flashing, is it stuck? At least if you would see a time change or seconds, you know there's some kind of progression there.
Right, yeah, because I don't know if we'd be able to say you're 75%
No?
done with it at this point.
Even if you had a time still updating at the
Just so you guys are
time, at
aware,
the current time. So you
Large
know.
data set, large data set.
somebody does this thing.
Well, the nice thing is if you do it manually, you take you probably hours, so
We could do that.
anything under half an hour probably is still fast.
As long as the message changes, you're
Right,
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as
Yeah.
your message
And it's
changes,
like,
you're good.
That's good feedback.
It's kind of like call waiting. Don't worry, you're still on
You're
hold.
still alive.
and
We'll
now
still
you're
get
on
to
your
you.
Third song.
It's like, okay, music's changing, I guess I'm good.
Yeah, you don't have any idea whether it's still working on the first step or the last. You also don't have any idea how
How
much
long?
rows there are
Oh.
in a certain tab as well. So you could do something with that, perhaps.
Yeah, too much info. This
Can
is
we add a
me.
couple more tabs?
I probably should really eliminate that guy.
Couldn't you on the top include like between brackets the number of rows there are, so you have an idea whether you're gonna export like 5 billion of records or 100
Right.
or 1,000? Because it could also be that you just have like a poor query or something like that.
Well, if it's pulling directly off your translog, you would know how many records are in your translog. You would know so many of your translog for your progress.
A part
Yeah,
of
but
this
it could
too,
be
though,
the
is
long
lazy
one,
loading
two, three. It
concept.
could be that you're also pulling things which were
Right,
like
your
done
length
like
of
2
your
years
core is
ago or
gonna
10
be
years
out of
ago.
the translog.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
But you control that with your filter?
you can control that, but if you don't scroll all the way down because you are not aware that there's like also transactions from 5 years ago in there.
Right, but it still has to go through your translog number
Yeah.
of records to filter out.
Yeah, but
So
you're
even if
seeing
you-
like the top, the most recent
Right,
ones.
what
You
you're
don't
gonna
see
see on there.
everything underneath. Right?
Right.
Yeah, it has to do at least one for tabs.
It has to filter out your information, so it's gotta go through all the
They're all
records to
freaking
see
out
what
and
you're
they're-
filtering.
But you don't see that, you see on the screen.
Right, I'm saying it's progress.
Yeah.
You should be a
Yeah.
Progress, then you don't have any records out of whatever, it's
No,
process.
there's a genuine fact of life here. If it's gonna break, it's gonna do it in front of people.
Of course.
So,
They're all very
It's,
upset.
the rule of
Plug in or
universe.
wireless?
what?
You plug in or wireless?
Wireless, always wireless.
I think you need a new laptop
Yeah,
anyway.
we
I
always
agree.
say reboot the twice.
Yeah, they're all like
When all else
furiously
fails, turn it off.
exporting right now and going.
Have you turned it off yet?
It's probably not helping us export if they're all exporting all the time.
Take the battery out. If you have a laptop, take the battery out, put the battery back in.
Now the HP.
You have to exact
You have to
demo
unscrew
scripts,
the ultrasound.
scenarios which work.
Yeah, because with like SD cards and those too, and yes, they have them hidden.
I could have also saved that search, so I could just pop it right back up.
With your filters?
Mm-hmm.
That's good. Especially when you do common, you know, you
Right, over and over again, yeah.
So if you're asking if this is being released with 16,
Still need some testing.
But it is extremely cool.
Yeah.
I'm pretty happy.
Are you on the Wi-Fi right now?
Yeah. Let me see, there's a plugin up here and just jam in. What did I just disconnect? Okay.
Do you have a special computer?
I do, actually. I'm also running an Android emulator behind the scenes right now.
And a wind-
Walk away,
and a wind-up?
walk away, don't stand there. Go get a cup of coffee and then come back, and then turn it back on. Make sure that memory's clear.
Let's just do this real quick. I'm hardwired now. So,
Yeah, it's good to test everything with large data sets.
mhm.
We are using the text reporting tool, and we really had to go down to Oracle level to tweak the buffer there. This works. Okay.
It was the internet.
Yeah, just open it up.
So that's good feedback about the messages though, is how would you know?
So now I can actually just get an export every serial number so I can send this to the customer and say, hey, everything you got in the box labeled this, pull it, we're done. We want people to live.
Mhm.
We don't want rockets to explode. That sort of thing. So in a nutshell, that's kind of one scenario. There's a bunch more, but that would be just a rapid one. Olivia, did you want to show the order status one?
Sure.
Is there any, before I jump onto that, is there any questions on this from what you've seen so far? I know I talk kind of quick, so tell me to slow down whenever. Stephanie's gone, I don't want to go on. Cool.
Perhaps the bulletin board is nice to see because not everybody has seen that.
There's one other scenario that I think Olivia wanted to show.
Oh, just the other two areas in Lawton Track and Trace. We've got the order status and time-sensitive material.
Sorry. So we'll warn you before we're destroying your work, because we're nice people.
And time-sensitive material, that would be like raw milk or something which is...
Raw material, yeah, so if it's expired, it'll show up in red.
certain shelf life. Or,
Right.
Okay.
More rapid view into the existing application, so I can see it a little quicker and a little more easier.
DD-TNT-Comp1. So basically, this will tell you what locations that this material is in. And again, it'll show you if it's expired, it'll be color coded if material is expired. And then,
Did this just flash in from the right side of the screen or? Yes, okay. Looks cool.
and then you can drill down into the location and see what sales orders that material was associated with.
Oh, gotcha. I'll go back to the one we're actually looking
change that to 10.1. You need a mouse.
I need a mouse.
Oh, nice, you don't have to click OK to get the calendar to go away.
So here's all the sales orders for that going out. So apologies if you see anything inappropriate in any of these numbers, customer names. This is direct to our testing database.
Our teams like to have fun.
Yeah, there's some bad jokes in there, just so we're all clear.
So Stephanie, what you're looking at here is the time-sensitive materials functionality of track and trace. So we put in a component, or you put raw material, any kind of item here, and it'll show you what locations that item is stored in, and then based on that location, you can see what sales orders.
Is your expiration date being calculated by the number of days on the item?
It,
Based on the end date?
Yeah,
yes.
just the,
Yeah.
the same way it works
Like,
out.
yeah,
Okay.
the same way it works in Enterprise IQ.
Cool.
In addition to time-sensitive materials, we have order status, sales order 1535-CHIC.
Dan ships a lot of stuff from Chicago, doesn't he?
That's his email. So this will give you information on a sales order, and you can double click or click on the item. And it'll, you can even see work order information and shipping information associated to this sales order.
So you're seeing as the foundational building blocks of a lot of stuff we'd like to move forward with over time. So, other parts of it, they're cool. The recall and analysis is,
Yeah,
I
it's
think,
the
the meat
big-
and potatoes.
Yeah.
Just a bonus functionality for your buck. Plus, it's pretty resizable. Isn't it? Before I do this? 10 yeah.
Welcome to beta testing.
But no, so this we wanted to show you this to you guys because this is the direction we're going. And wanted to, get your feedback as part of CAB to say that, yep, this is a cool direction, or what are you guys doing? Why? That sort of thing. And Fred's back there taking furious notes, as is Zach, as is Courtney. I'm not, I'm doing stuff here. So cool. With that in mind, I can jump over to the Android real quick. I will make no promises because I downloaded an emulator very hurriedly. So I'm not even sure if it's going to fly. So let's take a look. So that's screenshot. Why can't it be?
Emulator came from Pirates Cove.
Not yet. Give me just a second. I gotta pull this on my main screen.
Just starting
They use BlueStacks, but if you don't register, you have to download games.
Yeah, BlueStacks I liked, but there's some problems with it. It did not sit well with me.
It kicks me out all the time.
Yeah.
It wants to download a game every week.
Exactly, yeah.
I just put copies of passwords on all of our.
Like, I'm seriously not playing a game. I have the internet.
It's like, mine's the worst, and I hate myself.
Sorry, just closing. I gotta put this on my main screen, so I gotta close a couple applications so you guys don't see emails, messages, and other things flying at me.
I've heard that too. But if you, for me, for my flow downs, for our customers, because of defense, you have to follow whatever those FARs and NIST is.
Right.
So,
This change
yeah, so the NIST,
This look familiar,
I think
Niels?
the last revision didn't have the
I
passage
saw
phrases
this,
in
it
it.
was in March,
Still complex passage
I think,
phrases.
no, May.
Yeah, May.
Which bulletin board? Ah, right there. Was that it?
Yes.
The sort of hidden functionality.
That's one of the things we've been looking at as well.
Yeah, so I'm still trying, because you have until December to be in compliance.
It would be good if there's something relevant that you change the color of the icon. So you know there's something to look at.
Gotcha.
But then you have to have mitigation.
You can see I can come in, put bulletins in, make notes, do stuff as we go. It's all tagged with relevant information based on the work center, the item, the plant, everything. We've added some new functionality around downcode entering. We've added new reject functionality where it's clickable and I can start actually entering rejects very rapidly based on which item I touched.
And this is your Android?
Yep, this is an Android application. Gives me an information that I actually did it, which is kind of nice. So these are the kind of ideas that we've had around streamlining at least this UI area. Because you're right, Niels. There's a lot of information present here. So
This UI's gotta change. This UI's just not, right, Fred?
We'll work on
it's starting.
Let's start with this black background.
Yeah.
It's so dark. And when there's, this is just not.
Yeah, initially also had it should be light, but our factory is also quite dark, so perhaps it's done deliberately. But
There's some decisions.
when you're in the office or at the desk, it looks different than in the plant. So
Yeah, this totally has to be that.
Got a Kanban off the top of your head? Try 1-1-1-1. That's not gonna work.
Something
You start cleaning up the action bar. Downtime entry is a lot easier in this screen. It's going to let you get good access to it. I just don't have
Can
one.
you, sorry, you don't,
I
you
can't
can't show
show you right yet.
that. We're so waiting for that. That is such a black hole for us, downtime.
Corey, do you know if there's anywhere that's stuff for that right now? Like I said, I put this demo together literally while we were talking here. So downtime entry, the new stuff. Yeah, sorry.
because it's quite easy when it's actually down at this moment, because then the downtime square you get it,
Yep.
you can immediately click in it. But when it's running again, you have to leave this application and go to the downtime app.
Like that, yeah. And then it rolls back. That's what we're trying to avoid. So we're trying to get as much of it up front as possible.
I was talking to yesterday to somebody, and they were using it, and they had like multiple languages within the factory. And while discussing it, I thought, well, it would make sense if you had like multiple language descriptions for the same downtime code. But now you also can't do that. So if you have a Spanish persona and English persona, they would need to see perhaps a different screen, or at least have different downtime descriptions. Still use the same downtime code. We're sort of struggling that ourselves because we have multiple languages ourselves, but within an E-plant we only use a single language. If you're using multiple language within an E-plant, you basically want to have multiple language descriptions for the same downtime code, probably. But that's perhaps also an idea to check with other customers whether that's convenient or not. Because any of you are using also Spanish-speaking people, or
We have 2 plants in Mexico.
but you only
They said, please don't translate it. They have their work instructions in Spanish, and they learn the application. It's like,
Okay.
In
Don't
English?
mess, yeah, it's in English,
Yeah.
because it's simple.
Ours is in
They
English
said,
in
"Please
Mexico,
don't."
and they just learned the codes. Yeah, they asked too. They translated all the work instructions in Spanish, but the applications are all still in English. We're not
Yeah.
using.
they're also only using English, also in Germany and Holland.
So we can go a little more in depth in this, but I know we need to give you guys a break to get coffee and whatnot. But we can swing back around to this in a little bit. I just need to, like I said, I tried to get this thrown together literally in minutes. I apologize for that, but
We appreciate
Yeah.
the effort.
So big question is, which emulator did you download?
I used DualOS.
Okay.
I like that one. I used to use Andy, but that one now flags as a virus whenever you try to download it, so I stopped.
Yeah, I also tried that one.
Yeah, but DualOS works a lot better than BlueStacks to my estimation, but you know, your mileage may vary. Not to just, you know, make fun of Niels or anything, but I don't know why anybody use BlueStacks. No, I'm kidding. No, it's a very useful one. I've had bad luck with it trying to get certain apps to run, and then being asked to download games, and I always feel weird doing that at work.
Yeah, you register.
Yeah,
Yeah, I finally paid like 50 euros or something like that, and you were off the hook, or 20 euro. You don't get a mag screen anymore.
That seems expensive.
Well,
Yeah.
it's cheaper than most of your software, so.
Ouch.
Cheaper than a tablet.
Cool, so that's the basics of what I wanted to show you guys. We can go a lot more in depth later if you guys want, but let's go get you guys a break.
All right, I guess we'll get started again. Trevor's gonna do a demo of the track and trace in another session right now, but he'll be back shortly.
Sure.
But yeah, I think we can continue on with other requirements that you guys are looking for, other changes that would make the shop floor, you know, happier.
Other than scheduling, that's my huge,
Other than scheduling,
my huge.
yeah.
I think, yeah, the licensing itself, because like I mentioned, we have 8 people running around, but I don't want to give them tablets they should carry around,
Right.
or could get lost or end up in boxes at the customer or whatever.
Okay.
So I want to mold them or stick them on the machines, but the licensing scheme is to per tablet, per module. I find it very confusing. But is either one of you already working with Android apps or not? You also with the allocating the devices to the machines. I find it seems a lot of work to me. How is that?
We have them 2 ways. We have them dedicated to a work center where we restricted the pick list and set it to that work center so they don't move with the printer, label printer.
Okay.
Are you doing that through real time? Or through the app?
Through the app.
Which applications are you using? The work center and the
We
dock
have-
control as well?
Yes, we have the RT monitor, work center, real-time label printing, rejects. I think the rejects, the documents, and one other one used to be bundled with the work center app.
And for the dock control and the labels you mentioned, but it seems logical to me that you should be able to set certain printers for certain types of forms. So you don't want to print a PDF on your label printer, for example, but it seems like logical functionality to me that you just don't have a printer per tablet or per user, but you specify per document type because you need to print it on an A4. You're not going to print it on tiny labels, for example.
There is, you can set up a network, regular printer, if you will,
Mhm.
and then a label printer.
Okay.
But if somebody forgets.
But you still have to select.
No, you set it at the configuration level.
At the
okay,
tablet
so
itself.
At the tablet itself.
Oh, okay.
That is, I can't think of the right word that I'm looking for, so I'll just skip over it. In the application manager where you can assign the
In the
rights
dictionary,
and
yeah.
the configuration setup, you have to be a DBA to get in there. So to have somebody help manage those applications is really restrictive because you don't want to give everybody DBA access.
No,
Right.
yeah.
So when somebody's in there setting it up, mainly me, if I forget, sometimes the label printer will get assigned to the network printer. So when they go to print a document, it accidentally goes to the label printer.
You actually need to set it up within the tablet or within the data dictionary, or?
Within the tablet, so you can
Okay.
set it to be configurable at the RT station level. So I usually set them all up, get them ready to deploy, and then I take away the configuration so that people can't get in there and just change things to try and keep them all the same.
But you have to have RT station to do it then.
Yes, you have to have the apps. You don't necessarily have to have the RT station. We went with those because of the security instead of a tablet where you have to then lock it down versus the RT station, which is very specific to the IQMS apps.
Yeah.
Am I answering your question?
Yeah, I was thinking it would be logical to me that you don't do these settings at a tablet, but you do that within DD or somewhere, and it's stored in a database rather than in the tablet. I'm not sure, perhaps it is actually stored in the database. Because the tablet itself, it doesn't have like a registry or something like that, so ultimately it will be in the database, I guess, but you just don't have any official way of assigning the printer from a different front end than the application itself.
They're asking when you set the printer within the RT station, where does it store that? Is it in the database or is it on the UNO itself?
Pretty sure it's on UNO itself. I'll double check.
So in the back corner, we have Colin joining us. He is one of the test analysts on our Android team, actually.
Okay.
So,
Because ideally, I think you should store something in the database, and then you can also like script it, or from DD you assign it manually, and you don't need to do it at.
It's a mix and a match. Because some of those settings are stored in the application manager that you can get at from there, and then some of them are local, so you have to enable the configuration on that RT station and set the configuration there.
Because you've been working with it, we've only been piloting for a couple of weeks with it, but does it happen that a device breaks down or you have to replace it, and now you have some experience with that? Because I'm very curious how that would go, because you need to change the settings and...
Yeah, other than having to have the device with you, and I think the newer ones have fewer available, the ones that we have do not. The printers are all networked, so it's a matter of
Picking the right one.
And then how detailed you want to get as far as changing the grid row sizes, the display, and work center, if you want to limit it to that work center.
Yeah, that's also something we discussed in the previous CAP when we also had a session, is that perhaps you want the possibility also to basically those settings for them to be equal, or to also like push them rather than just go in and tweak them on every single device you have.
Because if you have to reset one, then you've got to track what settings did I have, and keep track of those manually.
Yeah, for operators running from one workstation to the other, it's very confusing if they all have different settings because somebody else likes this over that, and there's not like with regular enterprise IQ that it's like user-based, it's like work center-based, so if somebody screws up or it's weird for the other people as well, so you have to be able to revert back to the preferred settings, but they don't necessarily need to be the default settings. It could be like your company pushed standards, like you have a company standard for sequences in the column or certain things you would like to show or not to show. So I think it would be good if there's if it's stored in the database, because then you ultimately can always tweak it with SQL or an IQ alert to make it equal. Or ideally is that you also have some tools to set, like per manufacturing cell or per E-plant, a certain default settings which you're able to like push to the devices rather than manage them by device, because you have like 50 or 100 tablets, you're not able to maintain or keep them identical, because somebody could just do this and that. And
that is one thing in the application manager when you're assigning those apps, you can arrange them so you can get all your RT stations to look the same.
Okay.
As far as what order those apps are in, and that's really nice.
But also for the columns, for example, or
not at the column, that's on the station
But
itself.
just the apps, the way they're listed,
The way they're listed,
which is
yeah.
on top of, okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, because ideally to be all the things the same, unless there's a good reason to do it differently, but then I also want to manage these exceptions as well. So that you have sort of like control, that you also lock down those things. You don't want users to make changes to that because it's going to frustrate other operators or team leaders as well, because then you have to explain how they need to revert those changes back, and then it becomes already too complex. They just need to be able to use it. They don't need to be a master in configuring tablets or picking printers or whatever. So they just need to be able to use it, in my opinion. So thanks. It's interesting to know because we didn't break any tablets during the pilot yet, but it's one of those things where you have only 2 tablets, you don't mind as much. But if you are in production and you have like 50 or 100 ones, and then people start complaining, yeah, all these tablets, they look differently, or this column is there, and how does that work? It would be good if we could tweak that a little. So thanks.
Great. What else? What else are you guys looking for on the MES side, or anything on the shop floor?
We have the capacity limitations already written down, I think, somewhere, for work centers. So when you update your schedule, it takes the capacity into consideration.
Okay.
I think you also already have labor added into that as a constraint.
Right.
So those are my big things. Scheduling that will allow for the capacity and allow for the, adjust your must start date on your work orders
Okay.
for your capacity. I think that is left over from last few cab user group meetings.
I think from us, I know that John Smith had sent you back in June, I think, some suggestions on the shop data
Right.
Interface, and then I sent you some more this morning that had come through. And I mean, for us, it's just because we have our own application that we wrote that's very specific to and continues to change as our shop floor makes suggestions, and because we wrote it ourselves, of course, we can incorporate those at any time
Right.
and make our shop floor people happy. And so to us, having that configurable, shop floor is, I mean, we're not using IQMS yet. We're still going, I mean, our operation is pretty complex, and we probably won't go live until January of 2019. We'll have 22 plants go live on day 1. So that's, yeah, it's going to take.
I need to hire a couple of consultants.
You're not gonna pilot it in one time first?
We can't. The way that our product moves between plants, and they're distinct business units, but yet we can't use e-plant. We can't segregate by e-plant because we don't want to use intercompany transactions. So because of the volume and the amount of extra time it would take to do that. So yeah, we've really racked our brains on how we could do this any differently. And anyway, so having really that configurable shop floor is I think the biggest part of MES for us, because we'll have 1,500 users, and the majority of them are shop floor and scanner users. So making sure that they're pleased and the, I guess, the flexibility and the streamline of them being able to enter their data, because it is so fast-paced in our environment. So.
Right. Let me rewrap. What you are going to do is you're not going to use e-plans. You're going to set them up 22 divisions, basically.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do see some, we don't have that much location, but we have 2 plants in the Netherlands. And I already sometimes find it confusing on real time is that on certain screens and also on certain Android apps that you see all the work centers within the E-plant. Within the Android apps, I don't think you can easily filter on a manufacturing cell or on the vision.
And that's what we're doing right
Yeah.
now, is we're going through seeing all the places where there's not filters for divisions.
Yeah.
Because in addition to with the 22 divisions, we've got 3 business units, and each one of those 22 belongs to one of the 3. So we have to incorporate the business unit as part of it as well, because there are places where we're going to not only have to filter just a division, there might be 8 divisions associated with one business unit, and we need to see all of those divisions that go with that business unit in order to get the big picture of what's happening.
Yeah.
So for us, I mean, we've got, no plant does more than basically one operation. We have, I think, 6 molding plants, and that's all those plants do is mold, okay? Then the part gets in the truck, goes, and all these 22 plants are located in a 5-mile radius.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
So, the part gets on the truck and goes, maybe a block away to a plant that now that, we do a lot of grills, like we make all the Dodge Ram truck grills, we mold those and we plate them. So, they get in the truck and they go down and they're plated, and then we also do like the emblems that go on the grill. So those are both plated and painted. So we've got 2 painting plants. So those emblems will be molded, and then they're plated, and then they go to the painter. Then they go to the assembly plant to be put together, and then they're packaged for the customer, but they're not shipped out of the assembly plant. They're shipped to a distribution center, and then all that distribution center does is ship to the customer.
So are they, for your costing, are they finished goods when they leave one plant, technically a finished good for one plant and then a raw material for another plant? Or are you just transferring locations?
Are they whip items?
They're whip items. And
So
then
you're
the
still whip,
cost-
so you're just transferring?
And then the cost that's added in the plant where the operation is performed needs to be captured for that business unit. Because we may have capacity, this business unit molded the part, but we don't have capacity to assemble
See, ours
in
are
that
kind of the
business
same
unit. So it's
thing.
done in a different business unit, and we have to capture the cost for the
Ours are the
appropriate
same
business
way. We have 3, we have 4, but they're all on the same facility.
Oh.
But we make what is used in the first area in the second 2 areas. So technically, it is a finished good for the first area as far as their costing, so the cost has to get captured there.
Right.
And so basically, what we have to do for interdepartment like that right now, as our trigger, we put them on a sales order, an internal sales order, so we can track it. And then we generate a packing slip, and then it relieves it from inventory, and then we bring it back into inventory through an inventory transaction, add it back into the location of the second division, so that we can capture the costs there.
So you're not using ICT?
No, we don't have E-Plan. Everything's consolidated into one financial. So it's separated out by sub-GL accounts, but it's all one.
And that's for us, the new configurable financials. I mean,
Yeah.
we absolutely had to have that for, for the divisions to plug
Yep.
where that product
Yep,
is being.
and it's just using plug-in entities in different places, and then just the sub-accounts. But
So
we
is it
can
one
sync-
bond that covers the steps at all the plants, or is it
Yes.
separate
No,
bonds?
see, we don't. We have multiple bombs.
Oh.
But they're assembly bombs?
We have M-batch bombs and generic that are done in the one division, and then there's assembly bombs that consumes the generic items that are produced from the other.
Is it M-batch?
M-batch mixing, because we mix the material that is used in the generic that's coming out of that department.
I mean, it's, our bombs are for every item there's a BOM at each operation.
Oh, there
but-
is,
but-
okay.
So yeah, it's, because we can't change, that part might end up being, made in a different business unit next week because they've got capacity. So the items themselves, will end up having, like substitute BOMs, depending on, that have to be put into the work order, depending on where it ends up being made.
But you can, if you're scheduling, you can insert anything into any schedule.
Right.
So even if it's scheduled at a different work center, at a different facility, you can still, you don't necessarily have to do a substitute BOM.
But when it backflushes, will the accounting be correct?
It depends on if you're
Because
going to
what you have in the
transfer.
line.
I mean, we've been doing a proof of concept of IQMS within our company since we started in February, and we won't finish until December. And at the end of the proof of concept, we're doing a gap analysis along the way. And I mean, as big as putting in the ERP is going to be process change, to adapt to the new ERP.
Operational.
So and that, with that many people on the floor, that process change is going to be huge as well. So.
Well, can you imagine managing a schedule across 22 buildings? At least at the E-plants, they're managing their own schedules.
Yeah, and go live support, because you need somebody at least at every plant to hold hands, I guess.
Yeah.
So
I don't
22
even know
plants.
if there are 22 implementation consultants across all of IQMS.
And coordinate.
Let alone to hit your plant.
We've got a 15-member team right now internally, and that has done really well through the proof of concept. So, those people will be following through into the implementation.
They'll be the
They'll be
local,
project leads
yeah.
and so yeah, we won't be able to bring in that many IQMS people for the go live, but.
It was hard. It's hard with even one consultant at a plant on a go live day because people have so many questions, whether it's in the office, on the shop floor, across all the shifts. Like, yeah, you can't even imagine.
I've been working with IQMS at 4 different companies since 2000.
Oh, so you're very
And
familiar with that.
we've probably done, 24 plants live on IQMS I've been involved with. However, they've been one at a time.
So now you do all of them at once.
That's called taking it to the next level.
And then I retire.
Ultra implementation.
All right, so what else would you like to see on the shop floor? Anything to add to the roadmap or?
So during the intro session, or, when they talked about this session, they talked about diving into some IoT stuff.
Gotcha, yeah.
And Trevor said you didn't do that yet.
No, we
Okay.
haven't done that yet.
All right.
So
what
that
do you got
is,
for us?
that's one of the things, we've heard of IoT. It's been around for many, many years. And we want to get an understanding from you guys. What does IoT mean to you? What are you looking for as far as IoT? From our side, we've been working more and more on getting data out of machines through PLCs and various devices to import into our system. But what is it, what are some of the changes that you guys are looking for as far as IoT?
We're just at a very basic level at this point, with
Yeah.
real time and.
Do you use process monitoring?
No,
Oh,
we don't
okay.
even have base implementation across all the
Oh, okay,
facilities yet.
gotcha.
That's in a future phase.
Yeah. So our process monitoring module does a lot of, being able to communicate with various machines. We've got a bunch of different protocols that will collect capabilities from the various machines. So we're continuing to go along that path. As far as, you know, data being sent back to the machine to launch some kind of process, we're kind of on the fence with that, because with that, we have to have liability, there's a lot of liability behind that, but, you know, it's something, this is, you know, huge that everyone is starting to get into, and, you know, looking for your guidance as to what would move you guys forward in the IoT realm.
Besides real-time production monitoring with the cycle counts, what ways does process monitoring interface with the MRO module, or doesn't it? You know, to help look at preventative maintenance. Yeah, we can talk about cycles, that type of thing.
Cycles and hours.
Yeah, is there anything else that, you know, information that's useful for that module to talk about, you know, predictive maintenance or something funky going on in a press?
And that's what we have on our roadmap, is to be able to do that predictive analysis. You know, take the data and look at the different trends and be able to inform the users, you know, oh, this has been running for so long, and, you know, these are the different data points. It may be up for maintenance, you know, or look out for, there could be a possible failure, you know, after these many cycles. So we are looking into doing predictive analysis in the future.
But
Yeah.
nothing concrete, no dates.
Not as of yet.
Yeah, I think probably, because we use SciTech for the PLCs,
Okay.
data historian. We're looking at OPC now because we're upgrading to some Rockwell, like upgrading all of our PLCs on the shop floor in 2 different plants. You know, why would you choose the same PLCs, right? So now we're going to go Allen Bradley here and Rockwell here.
Some are restricted to machines, so.
And it's,
Yeah.
there was good enough reason that I wasn't going to follow my sword on it. But I always get requests to say, okay, well, this is what was going on. What was the scrap? What was the part being worked on? And that's only vaguely captured. So, you know, I've got people who spend time pulling the data together. So providing that connection, rather than trying to manage the PLCs, let SciTech do that. But tying it back to the transaction data, I think would be valuable. We're having to do it now manually.
Oh, okay. You're not using the process monitoring?
No.
Okay.
So are you using like a trend or like an interface to analyze your PLC? Download the information from the PLC to analyze it?
That's going into data historian,
Yeah.
right? So that's, and our engineers will pull data from data historian to do analysis of scrap trends, or and specifically around scrap codes. But the scrap codes are in IQ.
Yeah,
Right.
we don't do our codes and our scrap from our PLCs, but we do our temperature analysis and things like that off of the PLCs in a external software.
Have you tried process monitoring?
No.
Is anybody in here using process monitoring?
Yeah, I saw a demo last year. We're also looking at like an injection molding version of Engel, the factory. And I understood they have also the possibility to basically just push settings to a machine. And that's something the engineers like. Or they're able to see what were the various settings which we ran at during a given time. And just to be able to, like push it to the machine. So and that's somewhere the point where you still are, well, what can we do, or what is dangerous, or what is liability issues.
Exactly.
Because when the engineers want to change values on the PLCs, generally speaking, the products have restrictions on what your limits are. You know, you may have some latitude, but they can't be going from, 2,500 degrees to 3,500 degrees without getting a variance, usually from the customer. So it's not something you can just change. And yet, that's what we're at. That's the thing. They say, well, we want to have this SCADA program so we can just change these settings whenever we need to. Well, there's huge change management requirements to make
Or some validation.
Right,
or-
there's an up-rev
Right.
to that
Right.
existing,
You don't
plus you have
blow
to
up
keep
the machine.
traceability of what you.
Blow up the building, yeah.
Or create, like we make float walls for jet engines.
Yeah.
You don't want to put out a part that's, you said is made at this specification, it's made at another specification, and it causes a problem.
That's also with the more simpler IoT stuff, like with how do you call it? With the heating. For example, you also don't want to put your heating to 100 degrees or something like that. Or
Right.
there has to be some validation. And with PLCs, you usually can just write any value to a register, basically. But you have to have something in there which prevents you from blowing up the system. It's like also with your car. There are also some safe keeps in the system which prevent you from blowing up the engine. You will have a light or it will turn down, but if you don't have these safeguards, then it would be dangerous to drive around because you would.
And we have recipe cards for the parts where the parameters are most restrictive. We tried to do those in IQ, but it wasn't manageable. So we have a homegrown application for the recipe cards that interfaces back to SciTech, which is the SCADA program. And we have a balancing act there of how do you keep those limits enforced. So it's multiple interfaces across these things. And I'm not sure that you want to get into the SCADA world, to tell you the truth.
But yeah, the recipe cards would be like the settings which they then manually key in. So I think
And
that could be an IQ.
and the percent change that is acceptable.
Their tolerance.
The tolerance.
The tolerance. Yeah, we also have those cards, but we now still have them on paper. We'd also like to digitize them. I don't think we have enough user fields in IQ to basically store that because it's like A4.
Although the
You can
user-defined forms.
use, yeah, I was just gonna say, you can use user-defined forms.
And your programmers will hate you because you have to write reports against.
Yeah, and some of the views are already set up that you can pull.
Oh, that's true.
The user-defined forms easily for like inventory, they're already set up or.
And it has gotten better.
Mhm.
We started 10 years ago
Yeah.
with user-defined forms.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah,
And
so now
to
it's-
manually
now it's
say, it's
dropped
this
down.
table, this, and filter on this, and then this, yeah.
But the recipe cards, you created something yourself, or is it part of the other solution you had?
We had, it was an in-house developed system for years, for 30 years.
Okay.
And so the recipe cards were integral to that system, and we just pulled the data.
But you have it in a database or in
Into an Oracle
structure.
database over Visual Basic.
Ours were manually
Program.
keyed in. We had the engineering, I had it designed that our engineering was embedded into IQ and keyed in manually to match what our formula sheets were.
Okay.
Nobody liked it.
But you have a single source.
Because of you kind of lose the integrity a little bit and people can modify it, so you have to be really careful on who's looking, who's touching. So they actually decided to take the engineering out.
Right.
So they're still going, so I had to
Excel.
strip it all back out.
What do you
So-
do now, Excel or?
Paper document
Okay.
for the formulas, you have paper document, they pull them out, and it does match what the M batches are and things like that in IQ, and the engineering instructions are completely separate from IQ now.
And we got the recipe cards, and then the parts were tested and certified, and the certifications are bunched against the recipe cards to determine whether or not they were within spec. And then we generate certifications ourselves because it's,
So do we.
yeah.
So are you entering this data in both that one database?
We are.
And then in Enterprise IQ also?
And some of it, the part numbers, the cycle times and all the BOM information. But when it gets down to the specifications for heat tolerance or stress, because you have to do so many NDTs, you have outsourced for heat treat or coating that comes back in, and that has to be certified as well, and those certifications have to be maintained, so that's all outside IQ right
Oh, wow, okay.
now. Love to get it in. My programmer who wrote this retired 5 years ago, and I've been paying him as a contractor ever since.
Well, we have been looking into a program, Boomi, right? To do integrations from ERPs, software.
I would love to hear more about the recipe card. Like, what is a recipe card?
Some of those are directly in the machines, or ours are, they're directly in the machines. Like we have a mixer, the recipe card's in the mixer itself,
And what is, like, what's,
the equipment.
But this tells us we can't do that.
Well, I think basically if you look at like cooking,
yeah.
if you
You still
need
have
to
to
make a
enter
cake,
what
you have a
your-
recipe list,
Your,
and then you have the instructions what you need to do with the ingredients, and
Okay.
Right.
which you preheat the oven and
Right, your process.
et cetera, et cetera.
so you're
So I
talking
think
about the mix
Right.
and the temperatures,
temperatures,
pressure,
the-
whatever.
Right, the
the controlling.
tensile strength,
And that's-
there
and
are
that's-
certain,
Per manufactured item, it has,
Mhm.
each one has a recipe card. Okay, and what you guys are saying is that that is not currently captured on the bombs.
it is, we tried to do it in the bombs, and there was a guy who quit. Did a really valiant effort to try to get the recipe, because our goal was get rid of all of the homegrown applications
Mhm.
that we could.
Sure.
And these are a couple that failed. Now, some of the failure could be linked back to the businesses.
Sure.
Appetite.
But I mean, the
There's some places you can put it like in the special instructions,
Sure.
and then you can have, if you, within Crystal reports, you can have triggers to break your sections
Right.
of how you need to add your processes and triggers that way. So you can get it to look like you exactly want it to do, but that's still not a controlled document.
Right.
Your controlled document is separate.
So it's not valid, because what'll happen from this recipe card, they go, so we do wax, shell, cast, we're an investment casting company, right? The shell, there are up to 8 or 10 layers of shell, depending upon the part, and there's different sands. And this recipe card tells the PLC how many dips, how many, and then the PLC, and there's another module that actually tracks these sprues and how many dips they've had.
So that recipe card is going to be feeding information to, it could be someone manually mixing stuff, it could be a machine that's going to do the injecting.
It's
it could
almost
be-
100% sure.
Okay, so,
because
but,
it's manual.
but in a nutshell, you've got multiple different systems that will get data from that recipe card
Right.
to do something.
Right.
So kind of the initial ask, it sounds to me, Olivia, is it's just kind of the ability to add stuff to bombs. And then following that, the ability to feed that data to other systems. And that's where the Boomi thing might come
Exactly.
in. Is Boomi allows, it's kind of like a mapping system. So it allows you to take any system and wire that up so that it can get to EIQ or pull data from EIQ. But we need to have a home for it in EIQ.
Right.
And then we can handle that mapping
That's true.
through any other system. It's doable.
Yeah, with us it's like an A4 with a lot of different columns and places where you can do something in your situation as well, or because you have separate fields for temperature or pressure
Right.
or.
So those recipes are also under change management. They can't be changed except by an ECO. We actually do use the ECO module to do these changes.
Okay.
So that there are.
Which is only a workflow though.
Right, it's just.
It's only a workflow,
Right.
so it's just triggering people, so it's really not a making
It's
the
around,
change, it's
yeah.
just a workflow to trigger you to do,
But
not,
it does-
not trying to downplay what it is, but
But
it's,
it-
it's just your trigger.
It helps us ensure the people that are supposed to be looking
Right,
at
it's
sign
just your
off,
checklist.
sign off.
Mhm.
But then the last audit we had for the ISO audit, they said, no, your application has to have an authorization path in it as well. After 15 years. they
So even the
decided-
signing off on an element isn't doing it for them.
Right, right, they actually have to see the change
Physical.
in the database, who changed it, who signed off on it.
Yep,
Yeah,
other than just the bomb control or the
right.
traceability on that field.
And what the history was, what was it changed from?
So other than putting the trace on those, but if you delete a component, then other than trying to use trace to find all of that,
Right.
it's not as easy.
Now, we've written in the application, that it actually saves record as a change. But at any rate, that's then read into, and there's a current version, so the current rev, that gets read into the PLCs. And then it's deleted, so we don't store data in the PLCs. And I just had this conversation with our controls guy, because he's saying our new GEs, we can save them all right in the PLC.
Right, you should have, right, unless you enter a new one
Right.
and then
So-
have dual in there with just multiple revisions.
Right, they
And
want-
hope they run the right one with the right revision when
That's-
they're running it.
So when we had this conversation with Pratt, they said you can have one recipe per part, and it has to be the current one, and you have to be able to prove that you're running the current recipe
Yeah.
in that PLC. And that's-
So for error reduction, you only have one that can exist. Yeah.
You should be able to write that. Come on.
And not blow.
We'll prioritize that on our backlog.
Yeah, if you map it incorrectly and the pressure goes to the temperature and
Mhm.
the other way around, it can be dangerous, I guess.
Yeah. So there's a,
But your software does that. They write back to the,
right.
and it never, no mistakes.
No, it's fairly straightforward as long as people aren't tweaking. And what happens is the operators insist on having the ability to tweak the PLC, right? So we do the best to get the recipe to them in the correct form. If they decide to turn the heat up a little
Mhm.
bit, or maybe make the cycle time a little faster because, and that actually happened, their drying time on the shells is in 12 hours. And
Yeah.
some engineer decided they were gonna get more throughput
Needed
by going
expedite,
4
needed
hours.
expedite.
Right. And
Yeah.
they
Let's
were
just
still-
shorten that.
Yeah, and that was with Chrysler. That was a disaster.
They're also doing that in Chernobyl, but they weren't injection molded, I guess.
Yeah.
All right, so I think it's approaching noon, which is when lunch starts. Does anybody have any other things they want to bring up? No? All right. Well, thank you for joining this session, and I guess you guys can head out early. I see a few people roaming around out there. But again, if you guys have any questions or any ideas, let us know. We're gathering all this information this today, and we'll be coming together as a product management team and prioritizing the changes for our roadmap.